Hey guys, tonight we slip into a moonlit vineyard where the air smells like cold grapes and late summer dust. You stand between rows of leaves that shine like fish scales under the stars. Somewhere behind the hill, the sea breathes in and out, slow and steady, like a giant sleeping cat. A figure waits ahead with an ivy crown, a grin, and a gold cup that glows like a tiny moon. Yes, that is Dionysus. He lifts the cup at you, as if to say, "Come on, just a taste." If you try to keep up with a god at the cup, you probably won't survive this. So we will sip slowly and safely. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Please tell me your city and your local time in the comments. I love seeing our little map light up. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step, and the dirt gives a soft crunch. Dew kisses your ankles. Grapes hang heavy, blue and fat, like they forgot to be modest. The god tilts his head. His hair is dark and messy, as if a breeze keeps passing fingers through it. He taps the cup. The surface shows tiny stars. The smell is sweet but also sharp, like pine and citrus, and has a hint of sea spray. He points with the thyrsus in his other hand. It is a tall fennel stalk. Ivy twists around it. A pine cone sits on top, like a funny hat for a plant. You nod because that is a normal thing to do. He lays a path for you with fresh grape leaves, one by one, as if the soil itself is rolling out a green carpet. It crackles. The leaves cool your feet. You follow. A clay jar waits by a stone. It looks like a big teardrop with handles. You know this shape. It is an amphora. People used vessels like this all over ancient Greece. They sealed them with pine resin to keep the wine fresh. That resin gave a pine note. Some folks still like that taste and call it ritsina. The god smiles, as if you just passed a tiny quiz. He pours a taste into a shallow cup. The rim is thin. The paint on it shows ivy, waves, and a lazy dolphin. He gestures to the sea. The night wind brings salt to your tongue. He says nothing. He does not have to. The cup speaks fine. You take a small sip. It is cool. It is bright. You feel your shoulders drop. A goatskin hangs on a peg nearby. It squeaks when the wind rubs it. You try not to laugh. He winks. The vines lift and sway, like dancers who forgot the music but kept the mood. You feel safe but also watched, in a kind way. The god seems young and old at once. Historians still argue whether he wandered in from Thrace or farther east or rose right here from Greek soil. He does not explain. He twirls the thyrsus so the ivy rustles. A moth lands on the pine cone and rides it like a tiny chariot. You grin. He grins back. You step onto the leaf path again. It leads between two stone terraces, then down toward a low wall. Beyond the wall, the land drops into a little cove. The moon paints a road on the water. If you are waiting for a safety rail, there is none. But the leaves know where to go. You go with them. White socks may not survive this walk. At the bottom of the slope, a low table waits. A big bowl sits in the center. It looks like a fat pot with two wide handles. You know this one, too. It is a crater. Wine meets water here, because Greeks liked their cups balanced. Strong wine came first. Cool well water followed. 3 parts water to 1 part wine was a standard plan. He lifts a ladle and pours. The sound is like rain in a cave. He hands you a shallow cup with little handles. A kylix. You hold it like a small steering wheel and try not to giggle. Somewhere, a donkey brays like a squeaky door. The god leans close. For a moment, the drink smells like the sea itself. Some islanders once mixed a splash of seawater into wine. It was a thing. You nod. You decide that sounds bold. You also choose to pass tonight. A torch flares near the wall. Shadows wobble over the vines like fish underwater. Somewhere, a flute sings a slow, sleepy line. You breathe with it. The god taps the ground with the thyrsus. Vines creep a finger's width, then stop, as if they only wanted to show that they could. Fireflies rise. They blink in time with your heart. The leaf path turns right and threads along the wall. You trail your fingers on the stone. It is cool. Lichen creates soft maps that are unreadable. Up on a far hill, a long curve of seats sits silent in the dark. A place like that once held plays for him, right under the big rock of Athens. You do not rush. He does not rush. A breeze tries to steal your cup. You shield it like a tiny umbrella. He laughs. Even the laugh feels round and warm. He lifts the cup again and tips it toward the shore. The surface shows a tiny boat. It is there, then gone, like a trick of night. You smile. You are not here to solve anything. You are here to walk, sip, and listen. He nods, as if he heard that thought, and places one more leaf at your toes. The path feels alive now. It coils around a fig tree. The figs smell like honey and shade. A little owl blinks from a branch and agrees with everything. Far off, someone drops a basket. The thump is soft, like a hand clap under a blanket. A cat answers with an unimpressed meow. You and the god do not mind. You exchange a look that says, yes, life is messy, and that is fine. One last joke from the night. A grape rolls under your sandal and tries to take you out. Nice try. You steady. The god winks. The leaf path curls left, and the vines open like curtains. The god taps his thyrsus on the soil. The ground hums, soft as a cat purr. A drop of wine falls from his cup and kisses dust. The dust blooms into a city of tiny light. You lean close. The scene grows. Stone walls rise. A palace glows on a hill. The night air changes. It smells like rain on warm tile. You know this place by the look of it. The name comes to you like a whisper. Thebes, a real city in Greece with an old hill called the Cadmea. People still walk that hill today. Here, though, the past wakes up. A young woman stands by a window. Her hair is dark. Her hands rest on a belly not yet round. She is Semele, a princess. She watches a storm build far out on the plain. The clouds flash but hold their thunder tight. A man visits her at dusk. He looks like a prince who forgot a crown. His smile is warm and heavy, like summer. He says kind words. He promises to keep her safe. He brings gifts that smell like new rain and baked bread. He is Zeus in a calm mood. He is perfect at calm moods. Calm moods are often where trouble begins. You can feel Hera notice from far away. Even the vines around you tense, as if they know what is next. An older woman calls on Semele the next day. Her shawl smells like olive smoke. Her voice is a soft scratch. She nods and frowns with care. She is Hera in a costume. She says, "Be sure. Make him prove it. Make him show you his true self." The advice glitters like a fishhook. Semele reaches for it because love is brave. Also because love likes shiny things. You close your eyes for a beat. You hope someone will change the script. The scene waits. It does not change. Night comes. The prince returns. Semele asks for one gift. She wants to see him as he is. He hesitates. He tries to dodge. He has sworn a big oath. Gods swore by the river Styx when they meant it. That oath was the strongest in all their world. Even gods felt sick if they broke it. He cannot back away. He nods. He whispers, "I warned you." He lets go of his soft mask. He becomes the sky. Light fills the room. It is not angry. It is just too much. The bed turns white. The air turns white. Semele leans toward it because it is him. The brightness kisses her, and she falls like ash. No scream, just a soft sigh that feels like a dove leaving a hand. A cradle near the bed cracks. A tiny pulse beats inside the smoke. The god beside you does not speak. He only bends his head. Hermes arrives in a blur. He moves like a courier who wants 5 stars. He snatches the small, still form from the gray. Zeus lifts the child against his chest. He looks lost for breath. Then he does something very odd. He cuts a seam in his thigh. He tucks the infant inside, like a secret. He stitches the seam with godlight. Not a parenting tip you should try at home. But it works for him. Days pass. Weeks pass. The god at your side gives you a side eye. He knows this part sounds wild. The vines swish like listeners who want more. A storm rolls across the plain. The stitch warms. A cry bursts from the mark like a bird from a nest. Zeus opens the seam. The baby is born a second time. He is sleepy, pink, and full of breath. He is twice born now. The god smiles at that phrase. He owns it like a favorite jacket. Singers later make a wild hymn for him. They call it a dithyramb. It tumbles like a mountain stream and keeps going. Historians still argue whether the word means two-door birth, or if it means something else that has been lost. You do not need the root to feel the beat. Your heel rocks in the dust. The moth from the pine cone drifts by, as if to say, we clap in our way here. The scene shifts. A small house by a field. A woman bends over a cradle. She is Ino, Semele's sister. Her husband, Athamas, drags a net from the river. Their dog yawns at the door. Hermes slips in and sets the baby down. Ino looks, and her face goes soft. She knows what he is and what this means. She nods anyway. She wraps him in a girl's dress. She tucks a ribbon in his hair. She hides him in plain sight. Hermes grins. He loves a good disguise. Hera notices, of course. Hera always notices. Hera has a black belt in grudges. The house grows tense. The light in the windows shakes. The air smells like rain and salt. Ino and Athamas run for the shore. The sea lifts like a blanket. Foam wraps the couple. Old stories say Ino becomes a sea spirit who helps sailors. The dog barks once and is quiet. You hold your breath. The leaf path touches your ankle and says, move on, move on. Now the baby goes to the hills. A name whispers in the trees. Nyssa. Some say it is a mountain in Thrace. Some say it is in far Asia. Some say it is just a sweet nowhere. The cave is cool, dark, and safe. The cradle is a basket lined with ivy. Bees hum at the mouth of the cave. They carry tiny drops of honey on their legs. Some storytellers claim bees brought honey to the cradle, and that is why his voice stays sweet. He sucks his fist and sleeps like a stone in a river. Nymphs sing. An old satyr with a white beard nods off in the door. A kid goat stomps one tiny hoof like a drum. You catch a new smell in the air. It is sharp. It is green. It is grapes crushed under the heel. Someone has pressed a few for medicine. A smear of juice stains a rock like a smile. The baby sneezes when the nymph dips a cloth in it. His nose wrinkles. His eyes open. He stares at the purple mark as if he knows it is home. At night, the sky is a bowl without a crack. The cave holds the warm day like a clay jar. The infant lies on a bed of dry vine leaves. They whisper under him, a little hush with every breath. A small ivy wreath rests on a peg. Greeks later wore ivy at parties to keep a cool head. They thought it eased the next morning. You see the wave and nod. Even a baby can sleep better under green. The god beside you pours a new sip into the crater. He adds more water than before. He hands you the kylix. The surface shakes with a tiny wave. You think of Semele's window and the light that was too much. You think of the seam and the patient stitch. You think of two small births and one big life. Your throat feels warm and kind. You hear the baby in the cave make a soft, needy sound. A nymph shushes. The satyr snores. Sounds like a donkey trying to sing. Morning at Nyssa is slow. Mist lies low in the trees. Dew sits on the ivy like pearls in a cheap shop window. You feel the joke land and smile. The nymphs bring water in clay cups. They touch the baby's brow with cool fingers. A vine reaches inside the cave and curls near his toes. The god sets his thyrsus by the door. The pinecone tips and bows like a little teacher taking attendance. He does not speak. He does not need to. The cave already smells like a life about to bloom. A thin path runs from the cave to a hidden spring. You walk it with the god. Your sandals kiss the mud and lift away clean. You listen for Hera and hear nothing. You listen for thunder and hear only bees. He stops by the spring and lets you look in. Your face floats there with leaves and light. A small second face appears next to yours. It is the baby, doubled in the water. He laughs without a sound. You wave and the water waves back. You climb again. The path circles the cave, then slips into shade. The god flicks two fingers. The scene of Thebes fades. The tiny palace folds into dust and falls into the soil. Only the hum of the vines remains. The night is soft again. The owl from the fig tree flits to a new branch. It blinks twice and approves. You stand still and let the air rest on your skin. The god does one last small trick. He touches his thigh with a grin. A faint seam of light glows there, like a thin moon under skin. Then it fades. It is there and then it is not. It was always a secret, but not to you. He tilts his chin toward the hills. The leaf path waits. You follow, quiet, feeling the story settle, warm as wine, cool as water, both at once. The leaf path slides into a round, flat court. A low stone basin sits in the center, smooth from years of feet. A rope hangs from a fig branch, just in case someone wobbles. A group of satyrs waits, knees knobby, tails flicking like metronomes with fur. The old one with the white beard, Silenus, claps once. His palms sound like two dry leaves. Shoes off, his eyes say. Your toes sigh, brave but unsure. Nymphs bring baskets stacked with grapes. Blue ones like midnight, green ones like little moons. They pour the fruit into the press. The pile glows wet. A moth, maybe the same daredevil from the pine cone, loops by and approves. You step in. The grapes are cool and slick. Your soles slip. Silenus grips the rope with one hand and your elbow with the other. Heel toe, his nod says. Light feet, kind feet. Your first step squishes. Juice kisses your ankles. Your second step finds a rhythm. Heel toe, heel toe. Your toes have already filed a complaint with heel resources. The satyrs start a chant. It is simple. It is a stomping song. You can hum it even if you forget the words. The nymphs clap with sticks, soft and steady. The juice rises over your feet and pools in the low corner. A little spout there drips into a clay tub. A kid goat tries to drink from it. A nymph chases it off with gentle hands. The goat pouts and taps one hoof, a tiny drum with feelings. Silenus shows you how to aim your weight. Not too hard. You do not want to crush the seeds. They can make the drink taste harsh. You keep the soles flat. You find a sway. Your shirt sticks to your back. Your smile loosens. A satyr tells a bad grape joke. It is about whining. It is so bad it loops around to good. You promise yourself you will not repeat it, and you know you will. When the tub fills, the nymphs carry it to a filter. It is a basket lined with clean reed. Juice runs through in a red thread. Fills a jar, then another. Resin is applied with a brush to seal the lids later. The smell is sharp and happy, like a pine tree that took a bath. Silenus lets you paint one seal. Your line is crooked. He acts like it is art. You consider framing the jar and calling it modern. He leads you to a wide bowl set on a stand. A crater like the one by the shore. He points at a well by the fig tree. A rope and bucket live there. Nymphs draw water so clear you can see tiny stars in it. He tips wine into the crater first. Then he adds the water. 3 parts water to 1 part wine. The swirl looks like smoke inside the bowl. Greeks liked it like this. Strong wine straight from the jar was seen as wild and rude. You taste a sip. It is bright, clean, and soft on the tongue, like a breeze that learned table manners. A satyr brings out the shallow cups. Kai likes, thin and wide. The handles are like little ears. He tells you how to hold it by the stem, 2 fingers under, thumb steady. Do not slosh unless you plan to feed the ants. You practice the lift. Sip small, breathe, talk, sip again. This is a no cannonballs zone for cups. The satyr nods as if you just passed cup 101. Silenus taps the side of the crater. He points at the water again, his brow lifts. You get the lesson now. Water first or wine first? He shrugs. He does both in turn, then grins. Historians still argue whether Greek wine was lighter or stronger than today, and whether that is why they watered it so much. You don't need a chart to see that this mix makes sense. Your head stays clear. Your chest feels warm. Your feet want to dance, but your mouth can still make sentences. A nymph sprinkles a pinch of thyme into a small bowl. She adds a lemony leaf. She dips the herb into the cup and lets it kiss the surface. The smell lifts. Some folks flavored wine with spices. They liked myrtle or fennel or a hint of bay. You try a thyme sip. Tastes like a hill after rain. The goat votes no and eats the sprig. Sample size, 1 goat. Not peer-reviewed. Silenus shows you a strainer with holes like stars. He pours through it to catch bits. He points at a little pile of dregs in a cup. He sets a small target on a pole. A bronze dish balances on top. The satyrs grin in a way that says, "Game time." They flick the last drops at the plate. Ping, ping. The dish rings and tips. It is Katabos, a party game with aim and style. Quirky? Yes. But it beats arguing about olives. You try. Your drop goes wide and taps a figure. The fig falls and bops the goat. The goat forgives you instantly. The sun slides. Shadows stretch long as cats. Your skin dries sticky and sweet. Silenus waves you back to the press. You step in again, slower now. The chant drops to a hush. Your heels press with care. You feel the fruit give. You know where the seeds hide. You are not the boss here. You are a helper. The vines seem to notice. They sway just a little like a nod. Nymphs carry the new juice to a cool room under the hill. The floor is packed earth. Clay jars sleep along the wall. Necks up, mouths stopped with resin and clay. The air is damp and steady. A few jars are old. A few are fresh. In some towns, people open new jars in spring during a festival. They danced, sang, and sipped the young wine. That was a real thing in Athens. You place your palm on a jar and feel a tiny fizz, like the pot is purring. Back in the yard, Silenus stands by the crater. He takes a small sip and sets the cup down. He draws a line in the dust. He writes with his toe pace. He taps his head, then his heart, then the bowl. The lesson is simple. Sip slowly. Mix well. Keep your center. If your cup is a boat, water is the harbor. The moth agrees by landing on the rim like a tiny lifeguard. You sit on a stone and watch the light thin to blue. A calm wind walks up from the cove and plays with your hair. The donkey brays again from somewhere off to the left, as if he heard the bad grape joke and needs to weigh in. You raise your kylix in his direction. The donkey is unmoved. Donkeys have high standards. Silenus plucks a reed flute from a peg. He plays 5 notes, then stops. He winks and tucks it back. Tonight is not for wild dancing. Tonight is for clean steps and honest cups. Your legs agree by turning to jelly at the thought of more stomp lines. You have grape skins stuck to your calves like new freckles. They might never leave. Fashion fades. Purple ankles are forever. He leads you to the well. You wash your feet in a wooden bowl. The water turns a soft pink and swirls down into the earth. A nymph dries your ankles with a cloth that smells like the sun. Another drapes a fresh garland of ivy on your neck. The leaves are cool and kind. You breathe in the green. Your chest unknots one more click. A satyr squints at your cup and nods toward the crater. He adds a little more water just because. He likes you loose, not lost. You could see how a big bowl keeps a group gentle. One hand on the ladle means one heart for the night. You picture a room of friends using one bowl and one song. Later, we will find that room. For now, you learn the steps. Silenus picks up a kylix and balances it on his head. He walks across the yard without spilling a drop. Show off. He tries to set it on your head. You freeze like a statue. He laughs and lets you off the hook. The cup looks like a flying saucer from a museum of dreams, a frisbee with trust issues. You will stick to 2 hands for now. The moon climbs. The vines shine like fish scales again. Someone lights a small lamp. The flame hums the same pitch as the bees from the cave. Your shoulders are heavy in a good way. You think of the baby in the ivy cradle and the seam of light on a god's thigh. You think of the leaf path, still waiting, still green. Silenus sets the thyrsus by the door. The pine cone bows to the dark. You sip once more, water and wine in balance, night and breath in balance, and the court grows quiet as a held note. The leaf path slips downhill, soft and sure. You smell salt before you see water. The cove opens like a blue bowl tipped to the sky. A small ship rocks near the shore, nose out, ropes slack. 2 big eyes are painted on the prow. They stare past you, like a cat pretending not to care. The hull creaks, old with talking in its sleep. You taste brine on your lips. The god stands beside you, quiet as a shadow with a smile. A crew steps from the rocks. Their feet are quick and soft. Their smiles are too broad. They look at Dionysus the way kids look at a cake they did not bake. One whispers, "Prince." Another says, "Ransom." Subtle? Not really. The captain bows like a broom falling over. He offers a hand to the god. The god takes it. You follow with a shrug that says, "This may be fun or not." The deck smells like tar and rope with a hint of fish. A tiny altar sits by the mast. A cup on top, soot black around the rim. Some sailors poured a little wine there for luck before trips. A kind hello to the sea. The captain ignores it. He has plans, and they have more holes than a sponge. He nods, and two men toss ropes over the god's wrists. The knots fall off like bored snakes. The crew goes quiet. The helmsman bites his lip and stares at the shore. He looks like a man who wants a refund on this shift. The sail lifts. Wind takes it. The beach slides away. The captain rubs his hands and grins. The god sits on a coil of rope and leans back, calm as a cat in a sunspot. He hums. The hum is low and warm. The mast gives a tiny shiver. A green thread winds around it. Then another. Ivy climbs, quick and joyful, leaf by leaf, like someone pressed fast forward on spring. Grapes pop from nowhere. They hang heavy and ripe. The smell rolls over the deck. Sweet, sharp, alive. A satyr's laugh seems to hide in the sound of the hull. You fight a smile and fail. The captain yells for knives. A sailor grabs the vine, kisses his wrist and ties a bough. Cute but firm. Another man goes for an oar. The oar sprouts a leaf. It is a good leaf. He drops it as if it bit him. The deck grows slick as dew collects, but it is not dew. A thin stream runs from the mast. Why? A trickle at first, then a ribbon. It snakes toward the tiny altar, fills the cup to the brim, and stops. Polite, thoughtful, a tidy flood. You try not to clap. You fail again. The helmsman steps forward with palms up. "Let him go," his eyes say. "He is not a prince." He points at the altar. He points at the grapes. He points at the god. The captain waves him off. Bad call. Music threads through the wind. A flute you cannot see. A drum you cannot place. Thump, thump, soft like a heart under a pillow. The god stands. He is shorter than the captain, but somehow taller. He reaches out a hand. A paw answers. A lion stands on the deck, calm as a house cat with better hair. It blinks at the crew. It yawns. The captain drops his sword, realizing he wasn't that into swords anyway. From the shadows, a bear steps out and sits on its bottom like a fuzzy judge. This is fine. The crew scatters. One climbs the rigging. He meets a vine halfway and rethinks his life. One jumps to the rail, then freezes. The sea circles with silverbacks. Dolphins. They leap and roll like commas in a happy sentence. The helmsman whispers a quick prayer to the sea god and reaches for the tiller. He is steady. He is brave. The god nods at him once. It is a slight nod. Carries weight. A breeze shifts. The lion is gone. The bear is gone. The vines sway as if whispering a joke only they know. The captain tugs at a rope again. It ties itself to his ankle with a neat bow, then pats his calf like, "There, there." He squeaks. You bite your lip. You taste salt and grin. You consider updating your resume to vine wrangler. You look past the rail. The water is a dark silk. The dolphins breathe in small sprays. Their eyes are kind. In old stories, they save sailors. People painted them on cups and walls. Kids drew them in the sand with sticks. This is not a rescue yet. This is a warning that is also a welcome. The captain chooses to ignore both. He shouts, "Overboard!" But not as a plan, more as a feeling. A sailor panics and leaps. He hits the water and vanishes under, then surfaces with a splash and a twist. His legs knitted together. Skin slides smoothly. He cuts the water like a blade. A high, happy click lifts from his new mouth. The helmsman stares, stunned, then laughs once in disbelief. "Okay then," his laugh says. "Okay." One by one, the bold jumpers change. Arms shrink to fins. Back arch tails flash. No fear. They swim away in tight curves, then return. They leap in a ring around the ship, as if they were always meant for this blue dance. The captain grips the rail so hard his knuckles turn the color of old bone. He does not jump. Pride can be a weak float. The god steps close. His eyes are warm, but they do not bend. He tips his head toward the altar by the mast. The helmsman gets it first. He lifts the tiny cup and pours a drop into the sea. Thanks. Sorry. Hello. The wine hits the water and spreads like a red flower that fades to clear. The harp of ropes hums. The wind settles to a kind press. The god sets his hand on the helmsman's shoulder. The helmsman does not flinch. He breathes out, just once, long and slow. An ancient Greek song tells this story. Sailors stole a quiet god. Vines grew, wine ran, lions walked, dolphins rose. In that song, the helmsman lived, and the others learned to leap. Historians still argue whether the pirates were Tyrrhenian men from the west or local islanders with evil plans. The poem keeps its secret. The sea keeps more. The ship turns toward the cove. The dolphins follow like cheerful guards. One flips a shell onto the deck, as if tipping you a coin. You pick it up. It smells like clean rain and salt. You tuck it in your belt. The helmsman lowers the sail. The vines slide back down and curl into knots that look like sleeping snakes. Grapes fall to the deck in a soft heap. The bear and the lion do not return. They were only a whisper the god wanted the night to hear. You look at the painted eyes on the prow. For a blink, they blink back. You do not make a big deal of it. The god hates when you get loud about magic before breakfast. You step onto the sand. The helmsman bows to the god with both hands open. He bows to you too for good measure. He does not know if you are special or just lucky. You decide not to answer that question either. On the shore, the leaf path waits where you left it. A donkey brays from up the hill like a late critic. You tilt your head at the helmsman. He nods at the altar and pours one more drop. Then he cuts the rope from the captain's ankle and points him at a rowboat. The captain rows with shaky arms. He keeps his eyes on the oars. He does not look at the dolphins. They look at him anyway. You and the god walk up the slope. The grapes in the path crush like soft glass. The moth finds your shoulder and rides there like a tiny coach. The god spins the thyrsus once. The pinecone winks in the sun. Your sandals carry a little sand. It feels like a pocket full of stars. At the top of the hill, you turn and watch the ship shrink. The dolphins leap one last time, high and bright, then slip under. The sea smooths. The wind tucks itself away. The owl in the fig tree blinks and approves of the day shift. You rub the shell in your fingers. It hums a little like a small thank you. You hum back. It is silly. Feels right. Before you go, you glance at the tiny altar by the idea of the mast in your mind. You pour a drop from your cup to the dust. It darkens and cools. The god nods once, small and kind. In some towns, they paint eyes on boats so the ship can see the way. You think of that as you face the path. You feel seen. You feel guided. You step and the leaves whisper, yes. The leaf path slides east. The air turns dry and bright. Time tickles your nose. Your sandals brush yellow grass that whispers like paper. Hills roll out like sleeping lions. The god walks at your side, his thyrsus tips and taps. The pinecone keeps time like a tiny drummer with patience. You hear bees first. Then you see them, fat and happy, looping over roses. A garden spreads behind a low wall. It glows. Every rose is thick with petals. Some bushes look like little suns. A man in a soft purple belt stands there, hands behind his back, trying to look calm. He is not quiet. He is King Midas. He sees the god and bows too low. He holds the bow like a stretch he did not plan. Silenus is here, of course. He must have wandered off after our last cup. He sits under an olive tree, snoring with style. 10 days, the king says, and 10 nights. He fed the old satyr and kept him safe. He poured water into wine like a pro. He even tried katabos. He missed the plate and pinged a pomegranate. The pomegranate did not mind. It had a thick skin, same friend. The god thanks the king for his care. His smile is warm. His nod is real. He offers a gift. Anything. The king's eyes light like coins in the sun. He says the thing you would say if you forgot lunch and learned nothing from fairy tales. He asks that all he touches turn to gold. You do a slow blink at the roses. You are begging him with your face. He does not see your face. He sees a future of shiny stuff. The god sighs inside, where only you can hear it. But a deal is a deal. He nods once. The air shivers, small and quick, like the first ring on a pond. The world looks the same. It is not the same. Midas reaches for a rose. It flashes. The petals turn to thin plates of gold. They clang softly as they fall. He laughs. The bees take a hard pass on metal flowers. They loop away with a buzzing word you should not repeat. The king claps. He pats a column. The stone blushes to gold. He stomps the path. Dust turns to glitter. Great for a party. Bad for living. We follow him inside. He calls for bread. A servant brings a warm loaf. It steams like morning. He tears it. The soft crumb snaps to a golden brick. He tries to bite. His teeth touch metal. He fakes a smile that says, "This is fine." He waves for grapes. The grapes come, dark and sweet. He plucks one. It becomes a marble. He rolls it in his palm and mutters a word you can't print on a vase. Not a diet plan you'd recommend. He lifts a cup. Water slips and shines. He drinks. The sip hardens in his mouth. Turns into a cold coin. He coughs and spits it out. The coin hits the floor and spins. It wobbles and falls with a sad little clink. He looks at you. He looks at the god. His face is pale. Even the purple belt looks worried. He reaches for your sleeve. You step back like a champ. Boundaries save lives. He bows to the god again. He asks to undo it. He asks fast. He says sorry in 100 ways. He says he misses bread like a friend. He says he will take roses with dirt on them any day. The god nods. His smile returns. He tells the king to go to a river in the nearby hills. Wash there. Let the wish flow away. The river has a name you can taste. Pactolus. You travel together. The path winks through oak and pine. A donkey brays from a slope, loud and long, as if it heard the word Midas and had notes. You grin. Somewhere in another tale, this king will earn those ears. A barber will whisper his secret into a hole. Reeds will grow and tell it to the wind. For now, he hears the bray and blushes. The hills open to a stony bed. The river runs shallow, bright, and fast. It slides at the foot of a mountain that folk call Molus. The water looks simple. The sand seems plain. Do not trust plain. The god points to the stream. In your bag, the dolphin shell hums once, like a little yes. Midas steps up to his knees. He dips his hands. He lets the current wash his palms, his wrists, and his face. He sinks to his waist and breathes out. The water changes. A thread of color swirls from his skin, pale as dawn at first, then strong as a trumpet. It drifts and settles. The sand catches light. It glints with fine, soft gold. The god's eyes shine, but softly. He gestures to the bank. Midas walks out, dripping and new. He reaches for a twig. It stays a twig. He shouts once, pure joy. He grabs a grape. It remains a grape. He cries and laughs. He pops it into his mouth and chews. His knees wobble. His grin could light a cave. A servant brings a basket. Bread, olives, cheese, figs. He holds his breath and tests each one. Food stays food. He eats like a storm and then slows, breath by breath. You pour water into a crater and tip in a bit of wine. 3 parts water, 1 part wine. He sips. His shoulders drop. He shuts his eyes. Balance returns like a friend you almost lost. You look down at the stream, the sand winks. In real life, this river ran by the Lydian city of Sardis. People found a gold-silver mix in its bed. They called it electrum. The Lydians struck some of the world's first coins with it. You picture traders weighing little discs in the sun. You picture hands passing hope back and forth, 1 coin at a time. Historians still argue whether the Midas story explains those sands or if the sands inspired the story later. They also say whether there was one real Midas, the Phrygian king called Meda in Assyrian notes, or many kings who shared the name. The god lets the debates drift by like foam. Quirky detail for your pocket. Old writers brag that Midas grew roses with 60 petals. Imagine the smell. Imagine the bees going, "Sir, please no more." You pick one rose here by the river. It is simple. 5 petals. Plain heart. It smells like a clean morning. The king tucks it behind his ear. He does not miss the gold kind. He thanks God with both hands open. He thanks you with a nod that tries to be a bow and fails. He offers gifts. The god waves them away. He asks for water and a calm room. He wants the king to keep the crater in the center. 1 ladle, 1 pace, 1 song. The king agrees. You believe him. Hunger is a good teacher. So is relief. The donkey brays again, far off, like the world's longest, "I told you so." You can't help it. You laugh. Even the king laughs. He looks back at the river. Tiny sparks in the sand wink like fish eyes under the moon. People later will pan this bed and whisper about luck. You tilt your kylix to the current. A small drop slips free, kisses the stream, then is gone. The god taps his thyrsus against a flat rock. The pinecone nods. The vine wraps the stalk like it is at ease again. You remember the pirate ship and the kind helmsman. You remember the first crush with Silenus and the way water made the bowl gentle. You watch Midas reach for bread with sure hands. You like this scene much better than the shiny one. The leaf path is waiting, points away from the river, green and patient. You say goodbye to the garden king. He waves with both arms, big and goofy. He looks lighter. He looks human again. You step onto the leaves. They crackle. A moth lifts from the rose and trails you, brave as ever. The sun leans lower. The hills warm to amber. The river keeps talking to itself. A glassy hush on stone. As the gold slips deeper into sand, the leaf path leans into a sea breeze. Your shell from the dolphins hums in your belt. A tiny compass with a good mood. The god steps onto a flat rock and taps the thyrsus, the pinecone bows. A low boat glides from a cove, as if it heard its name in a dream. You climb in. The water is glass. The oars dip like sighs. Far off, white stone lifts from blue. The island shines like a slice of the moon. Naxos. You smell thyme, fig, and wet rope as the boat noses in. A giant doorway stands on a little islet all by itself, as tall as a story you tell twice. For marble blocks frame a hole to the sky. Locals call it the port era. It is real. It is old. A ruler started a big temple here in the 6th century BCE. He did not finish it. The gate stayed, a door to nowhere, which is also a door to night. You step past it and feel small but safe. A beach curves below. Waves fold like clean sheets. A shape sleeps in the shade of a rock. A crown lies near her hand. It looks like a circle of fireflies made into metal. The god goes quiet in a new way. You know this is quiet now. It means his heart leans forward. The moth from the grape court lands on the pinecone, as if it wants front row seats. The donkey, wherever he is, would bray. Pick the kind choice, pal. You come close on soft feet. The girl's hair is dark, a spill of ink on sand. Her dress is travel wrinkled. Her cheeks are sun-kissed. She breathes slowly. You know her name without being told. Ariadne, princess of Crete. She once handed a ball of thread to a brave guy who needed help in a maze. Thread is the original GPS. She sailed away with him. He promised her a good life. Morning says he is gone. Yikes. Classic case of ghosting before ghosting was a word. You look at the god. He doesn't gloat. He kneels. He places one palm on the sand near her, not touching, as if asking the island for permission. The waves hush. The sky leans low. A gull wheels far out and thinks better of yelling. He whispers her name. It sounds like a river over pebbles. She wakes. Her eyes find him. They do not flinch. She looks at the boat prints. She looks at the crown. She understands the shape of the morning. It hurts, but it does not break her. She sits up. He offers the thyrsus as if it were a hand. Ivy slides from the stalk and twines around her wrist, gentle as a bracelet that breathes. She smiles with the kind of smile that has decided to keep going. He picks up the crown. It is light and lovely. Some say Aphrodite gave it to her. Some say Hephaestus made it with tiny fires that did not burn. A quirky rumor says it held 9 gems for 9 islands, or 9 muses, or 9 sweet chances. You can't check the receipts. You see the glow. The god sets it in her hair. Fits like it was waiting. She stands. The two face each other in the shade of the rock. The sand is cool. The water writes little poems at their toes. He says nothing fancy. He does not need to. He looks at her like she is the first fig on a new tree. She touches his cheek with sea salt fingers. She nods. You feel your breath let go. The moth flutters once. A harsh critic turned fan. A few islanders walk down from the hill. They carry a crater and thin cups. Someone found ivy and wound it in rings. A woman brings a loaf wrapped in cloth. A man hums a melody with notes you almost know. It might be a wedding song. It might be a lullaby for a big day. It is both. You mix the bowl. 3 parts water to 1 part wine. Your hand is steady. Your grin tries to slip off your face. They drink with small sips. They share bread. A little boy tosses flour heads in the air and misses everyone but tries again. The god and the girl sit under a fig tree. Vines creep from the shade and bloom with a speed that is not normal and feels fine. Grapes swell. Leaves clap without hands. A goat peeks, sees the god, and decides to behave for once. That is a miracle you can measure. A ring of dancers forms. Feet tap softly. A chain of steps coils and uncoils like thread pulled smooth. On nearby Delos, people danced a chain like this and called it the crane. Some say Theseus taught it after the maze. Thread and steps both keep you from getting lost. Your feet learn 2 turns. Your heart learns 1 new lightness. Night comes sweet and slow. A lantern swings from a branch. Moths kiss it and drift away. The sea keeps its hush. You pass the kylix to Ariadne. She takes a small sip and laughs like a bell buried in wool. You pass to the god. He raises the cup to the island and the sky. He pours 1 drop of oil into the sand. A hello and a thank you. The drop soaks in and cools. Central fact, tucked in for your map. Naxos was famous for wine in old times. Coins here showed grapes. Sandals carried grape dust into paintings and poems. Marble from this island built statues that still rest in quarries, huge and calm. You can visit them today. They look like giants pausing mid-nap. The island wears stone and green like a friendly king. A story floats around like a gull on an easy current. Some here reenact this marriage each year. A mask of the god, a bed of leaves, a doorway of light, a song that praised simple food and full cups. Historians still argue whether those rites were local and old or if later poets shaped them to flatter a more famous city. They also say whether Theseus dumped her, or if a goddess told him to go, or if Ariadne chose to stay. You do not need a verdict tonight. The sand does not hold grudges. It only holds footprints. The crown glows a little brighter. It almost hums. Ariadne touches it and tilts her head. She looks out at the water. She looks up at the moon. The god follows her gaze. He lifts his hand, slow and sure. He does not grab the crown. He breathes near it. A breeze rises from the sea. It smells like thyme and cool stone. The crown lifts. It floats above her hair, then above the fig, then above the port era. It rises into a deep blue that holds hints of black. One by one, sparks appear and keep their place, like friends finding seats. 7, 8, 9. A curve, a half ring, a little smile cut into space, the northern crown. Greek sailors used this shape to steer by. It still hangs there. You can see it on clear nights in spring and summer. You tip your head back until your neck squeaks and stare. The moth stares too. It is a good circle. Ariadne laughs again. It is softer now. She does not seem sad about the clown's climb. She looks lighter without it. The god reaches out his hand. She threads her fingers into his. A vine twines both wrists and makes a loose knot. The knot is not a trap. It is a promise that breathes. You feel your eyes prickle. You blame the sea air. Sure, someone brings figs and cheese again. Someone else brings dates. You build a tiny stack and call it dessert. A satyr lurking in the olive throws a bad pun about dates at weddings. You groan. You still eat the date. It is sweet and a little salty, like tears that learn to be okay. You glance back at the giant gate to the sky. The moon sits inside the frame for a breath, then slides on. The crown shines above it. The door and the stars make a picture that gets into your ribs and sets up camp. If you had a camera, you would still stand there. Some shots you take with your whole body. The god leans toward your ear. His voice is warm and low. Kind finds kind, he almost says. Or maybe the leaves say it. Maybe the water. You think of Semele and a second birth. You think of the helmsman who poured the first drop back. You think of the king who learned bread beats gold. You add Ariadne now, wide awake and choosing. You fill the crater one more time. You water it well. You pass the cup and watch hands touch, pause, and let go. You feel the night settle into a steady hum. Far out, a dolphin's back cuts the black water. It breathes, smooth as a whisper, then dips under. The moth leaves the pine cone and loops once around your head like a tiny halo with no plan. Nice try, friend. The dance thins. The steps are slow. Someone sings the last line and lets it float. The island sighs. The god looks up at the crown and nods to it like an old ally. Ariadne squeezes his hand and looks toward the leaf path as if she can see where we go next. You touch the shell in your belt. It hums once, soft and sure. The port era stands dark against the stars. A frame for a love that learned its shape. You turn, you breathe, and you follow the leaves. The leaves guide you toward city lights. The air grows warm and dusty. Olive trees fringe the path like old friends. A hill swells ahead, crowned with white stone. The big rock glows honey gold. Below it, the curve of seats you saw before lies quiet, like a sleeping crescent. Your shell hums in your belt, steady as breath. The god smiles and turns into a street where lamps hang low and smell faintly of oil and figs. A doorway opens to a courtyard. Laughter leaks out, light and kind. A host greets you with both hands. His name is simple, Philin. He waves you into a long room with low couches lined along the walls. This is the Andron, the party room. Floors shine with tiny stones set into swirls. A boy brings a wash basin. You rinse dust from your fingers. A wreath of ivy lands on your hair, cool and damp. It feels like a small night cloud you get to wear. You recline on a couch. You lean on your left elbow because your hand is occupied. Crater sits in the middle, grand as a small moon. The symposiarch lifts the ladle. He rules the bowl tonight. He grins at you like a coach who likes fair games. 1 part wine, 3 parts water. He nods toward the god, who nods back, calm and pleased. He pours the first mix. The sound is a tiny storm in a clay sky. A slender flute starts up in the corner. 2 reeds sing as one. Alloy. The tune is soft and bright, like a thread pulled through silk. A woman shakes a small tambour with rings of bronze. The room sways a little. No one rushes. The god's Thyrsus rests by the door, pine cone tilted like it is eavesdropping. Cups pass. Kylixes, thin and wide. Ear handles curved like smiles. When you lift yours, painted eyes on the bowl stare back. Eye cups. When you sip, you look like you wear a mask. The room claps at the sight. It is a cheap trick. It still works. You cackle and cover it with a cough. Smooth. A servant lowers a strange pot into the crater. It looks like a bulb with a long neck. It floats, round and proud. Cool water hides inside. It chills the mix. A wine cooler, a sictor, shaped like a mushroom from a dream. Quirky and handy. You touch it and then pretend you did not. Like a kid with a museum sign that says, "Do not touch." Philin leads a toast. To good feet and a soft landing. He winks at your grape-stomp bruises. You raise your cup. You sip. You breathe. You set the cup down with care. A neighbor whispers a joke about a man who tried to count his cups and forgot how to count. It is not great. You laugh anyway. Your laugh is a good guest. A young man sings a scullion, a short song passed down the line. Each person adds a line, then the next. It is simple. It belongs to the room. You try one. It rhymes vine with fine. No one complains. Sometimes, simple is a blessing. The aulos bends a note around your word and makes it better than it is. You will thank the flute later with a fig. The symposiarch announces katabos. Oh boy, The target dish sits on a stand. Everyone leans, flicks, and pings. Your drop flies, arcs, and miracle hits. The plate rings like a small temple bell. You lift your shoulders. You pretend you planned that. The room erupts in cheers, as if you've just cured hiccups. You would like to thank your coach, the goat. Between songs, talk rises. Not loud, not sharp, warm. Someone asks if the first actor stepped out from a chorus here in this very city. A man says a name, Thespis. He points his thumb toward the hill. 6 centuries before your time, he says, a poet rolled into town on a cart with masks and verses. Historians still argue whether Thespis was one man or a tidy legend glued on later. They also say whether he used wooden seats then or if stone came after fires and plants. You sip and let the debates float like olive leaves in a bowl. Another neighbor brings out a small chest. Inside are masks. Plain, smiling, frowning. He holds them up and tries lines he heard that morning from a chorus practicing by the slope. The lines are for the god. They praise vines. They warn about pride. The room falls into a hush that is not heavy. It is a long breath. You watch a spark jump from cup to mask, from mask to mouth. The god smiles at the corner of his lips. The first sparks of theater do not look like thunder. They look like a shared look and a line said well. A host passes nuts and olives, then figs and a small wedge of cheese that smells like a clean barn. You eat 2 figs and pretend it was 1. The moth from the vineyard bobs at the lamp, then lands on your sleeve, like a tiny critic who wants a better view. You whisper you will love the next act, and the moth stays for once. Good sign. Philin points at the crater. He adds fresh water. The bowl keeps a steady pace. You notice the rule without seeing it written. No cup is bigger than the tank. The talk is the room's true drink. Someone quotes a poet. Wine is a window. Another adds, and a mirror. You add, and a nap trap. 3 jokes are a night's fair share, so your quota is now complete. Please tip your host. A man with gentle eyes speaks of a festival coming soon, the city Dionysia. He paints with words, procession, songs, prizes. He nods toward the big hill. A theater rests there on the south slope, under the long temple. That is true, you know. You saw its curve from the vines. He says a chorus will sing a wild hymn, a dithyramb. He says 3 poets will bring new tragedies. You hear names that will last. Aeschylus, Sophocles, and Euripides. They are not all alive yet in this story, but the room treats them like old friends already. The god places 1 finger to his lips, not to hush, but to savor the sound. A quirky cup arrives. It is a rhyton shaped like a ram's head. You drink from the back, but you must cover the horn spout with a finger to prevent spilling. It is silly. It builds focus. You try to pass with only 1 drip. Your sleeve will forgive you. The moth does not judge. It is here for the drama. The doorway opens for a breeze. The street outside breathes baked bread and cool stone. You hear a shout and a laugh as neighbors pass by. A slight wave in the night. The ivy on your head warms to your hair. Drops of resin on the jar lids shine like tiny planets in the lamplight. You touch the shell at your belt. It hums, as if the sea can hear the song from this room. The symposiarch now lifts a garland and crowns the best singer. The winner blushes the color of pomegranate seeds and mutters, "Stop, stop, never stop." He sings a final verse to the god. He thanks the vine for joy and asks for a gentle landing. A quiet line follows, "Measure is mercy." You tuck that in your heart like a folded note. A neighbor tells a soft tale of an old law. He says a judge once fined a host for serving pure wine straight. Folks laughed at the story because it sounded fake. But the point stands. Water keeps nights kind. A fact sits under the laugh. Athenians did water wine at parties. Mixed bowls kept heads clear and tongues sweet. You have learned this with your feet and your face. You appreciate the lesson twice. A small debate starts on the couch behind you. Did drama grow from wild hymns or street jokes and little processions with silly props? Historians still argue whether the first plays rose from serious songs or jokes with winked masks. The room smiles at both pictures. Both have truth. Both have steps that match the beat of your heart right now. Philin claps once. Servants bring basins again. Hands rinse. Faces are cool. A quiet boy offers a fig leaf folded into a tiny boat. He floats it in a shallow dish. It spins once and points toward the courtyard. He nods. The god stands, slow and easy. The room rises like a tide. You tie your sandal strap and hope it behaves this time. It does not. The knot sneaks loose. You retie it and accept your fate. Outside, the night smells like thyme and warm stone. The big hill glows. A murmur comes from the slope, as if a chorus is already warming up. You and the god move with the small stream of guests toward the street. Someone starts a soft chant. It holds the god's name like a bowl holds light. You walk and listen, light on the heel, kinder on the toe, the way Silenus taught. You glance back once. The host lifts a broom and laughs at it like an old friend. He sweeps crumbs into a neat pile and hums the song you added a line to. The moth slips out past you and finds the nearest lamp like a happy tourist. The crater sits in the center, empty and clean, like a moon after an eclipse. You feel the urge to ping a fig with Katabos one last time and decide to leave the figs in peace. Ahead, torches curl like bright ivy on poles. Voices gather. Steps slow. You feel the city tilt toward its stage. The god touches the thyrsus to your shoulder. A tap like a friend saying, "Ready." You nod, the shell hums. The stars lean. The leaf path gleams faintly between paving stones. A little green line only you seem to notice. You follow it toward the songs. Torches curl up the hill like fireflies on sticks. You follow the green thread between stones. The street swells with people. Cloaks brush. Sandals slap. Incense rides the air like a soft ribbon. The god walks beside you, plain and bright at once. No one stops him. Everyone feels him. The city leans toward one place, as if pulled by a tide. The theater waits. Stone seats bend around a wide circle of packed earth. The night lets go. Dawn touches the rock with pearl light. You see the shape now. The orchestra is the dancing floor. The skene is the low building behind it. The theatron is the seats, rising in curves like terraced waves. Fact for your pocket. This is the theater of Dionysus on the south slope of the big hill. Plays have bloomed here for centuries. Your feet stand on old steps that taught whole worlds how to listen. A small procession flows in. Men carry a wooden statue of the god. They set it by the orchestra so that he can watch the plays made for him. Sprigs of ivy crown the post. A bull stands calmly at the edge. Smoke lifts, thin and silver. Someone pours a libation. Remember the bowl? You think and smile. A boy whistles to a mule that tries to eat a garland. The mule loses. The garland wins. A hand tugs your sleeve. A stagehand with a rope belt and quick eyes waves you behind the scenes. He smells like sawdust and figs. "Don't touch the big rope," his grin says. You nod. Then you stare at the big rope anyway, like a cat next to a plant. He sighs. He shows you the mechanism, a wooden crane. It lifts a little platform up and out. Gods can fly on it at the end of a play. It is the original surprise guest. No jumping, his eyes say. You stand very still. Your sandals vote for gravity. Masks hang on pegs in neat rows. Smiling. Sad. Wide eyes. Big hair. The mouths are open like small doors. You lift one, gentle as a bird. It is made of light linen and glue, then painted. You look through it. The world turns to tunnel and light. A chorus voice warms up nearby, low and steady. The sound rolls like a pot on a slow boil. A singer pats his chest. Another hums scales that sound like a bee drawing straight lines. Costumes lean against a wall. Long gowns. Tall boots with cork soles. Buskins. They add height. They also add ankle drama. You try one and wobble like a baby giraffe. The moth lands on your shoulder as if to help. It does not help. A dresser laughs under his breath and saves your dignity with a gentle grab. Not your size, friend. A man with ink on his fingers sits by a slate. He draws quick lines for a scene. 3 tall triangles stand nearby. He turns one. A new painting faces front. Mountains to sea, sea to city, city to temple. Periactoi, rotating scenery. A crewman oils the pin and sings to it like it is shy. You give the pin a thumbs up. The pin is humble. Near the door, a wheeled plank waits behind a curtain. The stagehand taps it. He mouths the word ekiklima. It rolls out set pieces or a scene from inside a room. The plays do not show chaos in action. They show choices and the wait after. So this cart brings the result to the light. Today, it will carry a couch and a fake lyre. Not anything icky. Thank the gods. A sponsor, the Corregos, arrives with a proud face and tired eyes. He paid for this chorus and their training. He checks laurel wreaths, hems, and a box of props. He straightens a bead on a mask as if it were a crown. If his poet wins, he may set up a fine tripod in the city and brag on a stone. You will see those later, gleaming like moon cups along a street. The chorus lines up. 15 men. They stamp once in unison. Dust jumps. Their leader runs the moves. Turn, step, wheel, hold. The rhythm gets into your legs. You match your breath to the beat. A poet paces with rolled papyrus. His lips move. He chews a fig like it owes him rent. He looks at the god and then at the sky. He nods as if both say, "Okay, brave one, go." A small table holds cups and a water jar. A singer tips a sip past his mask. You blink. How? A stagehand winks and shows a reed tucked in the chin. Hidden. Quirky rumor time. Some say actors use tiny tubes behind the mask to sip without taking it off. You cannot swear it's true. You like the image anyway. Hydrate or dramatic cry rate. Your choice. A bell rings. The crowd settles. You peek from the wings. The orchestra glows. The first chorus pours in, robes like soft waves. They sing to the god. The melody climbs. It slides. It lands like a bird on a shoulder. You understand every word, even when you do not. You feel the meaning sit on your ribs and hum. A single actor steps out. Then another. History note. Aeschylus added a second actor long ago. Sophocles added a third. Voices can braid now. Stories can turn tighter. Judges sit not far up the seats, scattered by lot. One from each tribe. They will pick winners with tokens dropped in a jar. The prize is an ivy crown and a name carved true in stone. This part is genuine. So is the roar from the top rows when a good speech lands. You feel the sound wash over you like warm rain. A whisper runs through the bench line behind you. Women here today? A boy asks his uncle. The uncle shrugs and makes a face that means, depends. Historians still argue whether women sat in the crowd for all shows, or only for some, or not at all. The stage does not answer. The stage sings. The god beside you curls a smile that says, "Let them in, let them learn, let them love the craft." In the second play, a god appears, the crane creaks. The platform glides out. A purple robe lifts in sunlight. The crowd gasps and laughs, a little scared and very pleased. The machine does its job. A stagehand pats the big rope like a loyal dog. You do not touch it. You want to. You do not. Between plays, vendors move like fish in a stream. Honey cakes, walnuts, water. Rent cushions if your seat is a rock with opinions. You buy a cushion. Your back sends a thank you note. A kid near you spins a toy with a string and almost whacks your ear. He grins. You grin. It is fine. Drama is safer than that toy. The third tragedy ends with a long, soft note. The chorus exits slowly. The aulos whines, then rests. A sadder play follows, lighter and rude. A little safety valve for big feelings. Costumes puff with padding. Masks grin wide. The jokes come fast. You laugh at two. You pretend you did not hear one. Your mother's friend is both shocked and entertained. You slip back behind the skein. Actors peel masks away and breathe deep. Face lines are damp and honest. A man wipes his brow with wool and smiles at nothing. He sings a snatch of the chorus and starts to cry. Then he laughs. Then he eats a figure. Theater is a cardio workout for feelings. A carpenter shows you a big peg with a notch. He knocks it into a hole and steadies a beam. Never look up when a god is flying. His eyes say, "Just trust us." You nod. You trust them. They built a house for dreamers and keep it upright with twine and will. Fact for your map. Judges' ballots get sealed in clay jars. A second lot picks which jars to open. This makes the choice fair. The crowd breathes as names ring out. Some clap. Some grin with tight lips. Some stare at dirt and live to try again. The winning poet bows. The Corregos lifts his hands high and looks 10 pounds lighter. The sun leans west. The rock above blushes rose, then gold, then something like grapes at dusk. A breeze brings time, dust, and a hint of resin from jar lids. You think of the crater rule and how it held a room gently. You see how a city uses rules to hold itself gentle, even when stories cut deep. You walk the seats while the crowd spills into the streets. You run a hand along a row of numbers carved small in the stone. You find an ivy sprig tucked in a crack. You leave it there. You pass a monument shaped like a tripod with little curls. Later, in a narrow lane, you will see one as big as a house, paid for by a proud winner named Lysicrates. Not today, but soon. A final debate floats by like a leaf. Tragedy means goat song. A man says, chewing his reed, the prize was a goat. His friend shrugs. Or it means satyr song, or something lost. Historians still argue whether the word grew from a real goat, a chorus in goatskins, or a root now gone. The god strokes the pine cone and lets the word be odd and sweet. The stagehand catches your eye. He hands you a tiny, broken mask chip, painted red. For luck, he mouths. You tuck it near your dolphin shell. The two hum together, land and sea, making a chord. You like this chord. It grounds you. You glance down at the orchestra one last time. Dust lies smooth again, as if no feet ever drew circles there. The city breathes out. Work will return tomorrow. Market, law, ships, and tools. But memory will sit on the tongue like a good sip. Balance will hold. Measure will be mercy. The god taps your shoulder with the thyrsus. The pinecone nods. You smile. You feel the tide of people carry you down the steps and out into soft streets. You drift with the crowd, then peel away. The street fades to olive and stone. The air turns cool. A cricket starts up like a tiny engine. The leaf path glows faint green between thyme and rock. Your shell hums once in your belt. The god touches your shoulder, light as a moth wing. You follow him into the hills. Torches bloom ahead. They bob like warm planets. Drums thump, soft and steady, like a heart that wants to be kind. A ring of women moves through pines. Hair loose, feet quick, fawn skins over shoulders. Ivy crowns snug and green. They carry tall stalks wrapped in a vine. Thursoi, pine cones shine at the tips like soft stars. They see you and smile. No one stares. No one asks who you are. A leader with gray at her temple steps close. Her eyes are sharp and friendly. She taps your wrist and points to your sandals. Tie tight, that tap says. You obey. Your sandals sigh and sign an imaginary waiver. Satyrs arrive from the dark, hooves light on needles. They keep a distance that feels careful. Silenus is with them. Awake now, beard tidy-ish. He raises a cup and then puts it down. Water only for now. The god nods. The drum picks up a breath. The ring widens. You join the edge. The hill opens to a small field under tall oaks. Moonlight lies on the grass like milk. A basket rests in the center. A winnowing basket. A link. Grapes sleep there under ivy. A flute starts a slender song. A pair of hands adds clappers. Crotala. Dry and bright. The steps fold and unfold. Your feet find a place that feels safe. The leader leans in. She names the group. Thyasos. A band. A family for a night. She sets the rules with 3 slow taps. Stay together. Mind the pace. Help the one behind you. Simple. Strong. You nod. The satyr with the nervous ears nods too. Even his tail seems to take notes. The god walks the circle. He is plain and shining at once. The torches soften his face. He taps the ground with the thyrsus. The pine cone shivers. A scent rises at once. Not wine. Not yet. Milk. Sweet and cool. As if the earth had a quiet spring under its tongue. Someone sets a cup on the spot. The milk flows and stops when the cup is full. The leader smiles. She whispers, blessing, not trick. You believe her. You sip. It tastes like a story your grandmother would tell. A second tap. Honeybees at the edge of a rock. It glows pale gold. A bee finds it in a blink and writes a tiny circle in the air. You think of Midas and his famous roses. You choose not to bring that up. The third tap brings water, cold and steady, from a crack in the root. The bowl fills. The ring takes turns, slow hands, careful eyes. Measure is mercy, you remember from the city. It fits here, too. A satyr rolls his shoulders, then points at his thyrsus. He shows you the pinecone up close. The ivy conceals a small iron tip beneath its scales. Quirky detail, yes. Some say a thyrsus can be soft in sight and hard in need. A staff and a spear in one. You blink at the gadget. He winks. He tucks the point away and pats the pinecone like a pet. The ring tilts into a run. Not fast. Fleet. The ground is kind underfoot. The leader paces the line like a shepherd with joy. A woman near you shakes a round hand drum. Tympanon. The sound is warm and hollow. You say you will not join the drum. You take the drum. You join the drum. So much for that plan. You pass into deeper pines. Shadows stripe the path. The torches paint gold on bark and cheek. The god lifts his palm. The ring slows. In a gap of trees, the world opens again. Stars pour down like handfuls of white seed. The constellation Corona Borealis gleams to the north. Ariadne's gift. You tip your head. The knot in your chest loosens a click. The leader speaks to the god in a low tone. You do not hear words. You hear care. You hear trust. She turns to the group. She lifts the thyrsus like a standard and taps it on her foot. She laughs. The ring laughs. The danger breathes in the trees, but the laugh is stronger. It holds the line. A story passes along the steps. No one stops to tell it. It is just there. A warning woven with rain. A king once spied on women like these. He dressed in vine and crept where he should not. It went badly. It went very badly. No details given. None needed. You get the point. Respect the ring. Respect the rules. The goat from the vineyard would agree with a stern bleat. Fact for your map and heart. A play called the Bacchae tells this. Euripides wrote it. People first staged it in 405 BCE, after he died. It sets the scene on Mount Cithaeron near Thebes. Women run in the night. A king learns a hard lesson about pride. The play is a lantern. It says, joy is power. It also says, do not yank the god's beard. You nod. You keep your eyes where your feet are. The leader hands you a strip of fawnskin. She ties it around your waist. It is soft. It smells like smoke and the field. Nebris, she says and smiles. You tuck that word away next to Kylix and Crater. The satyr with the wobbly ankles tries a new pose he calls tripod goat. He tips over and laughs at himself. You clap because self-ownage with grace is pure art. You gather at a flat stone. The basket from the field sits there now. Vines spill over its rim like hair. A kid goat noses the ivy and is gently shooed by a nymph with a stern eyebrow. Bread appears, round and warm. The ring breaks by hand. The cracks sound like leaves in the wind. Grapes follow, then figs. The rhythm is simple. Break, share, bless, drink. The god pours a little wine into a bowl. He waters it well. 3 parts water, 1 part wine. The rule keeps its promise. Heads stay clear. Hearts stay open. Historians still argue whether women truly roamed hills at night, or if plays and paintings made the picture larger than life. The leader says, almost to herself, they argue about rage and joy and what people did with their hands. She shrugs and smiles. We keep the beat. We care for each other. That is enough. You like this answer. It feels like a blanket and a light both at once. A young woman steps into the center. She holds the thyrsus like a long brush. She draws a slow circle in the air. The pine cone hums. She stamps once. The ring answers. Stamp. She sings a little line. It is as old as stone and as fresh as rain. The chorus folds in, then out. Your chest hums with it. You think of the orchestra floor back in the city. You think of the bell you pinged with katabos. You think of the tiny masked chip in your belt. All of it fits. The night grows rich and kind. Owls trade gentle questions across the vale. A breeze slides down from the ridge and cools your neck. The leader passes a small basket to you. You peek in. A coil sleeps there. A snake, small and drowsy, tongue tasting air like a tiny black thread. The woman taps the basket. Friend, she says. You gulp and steady your hand. You are brave in new ways tonight. She smiles and takes it back. Not your turn yet. Maybe never. That is okay. Another quirky note floats by. Someone whispers that ivy chewed in tiny bits could cool a hot head. You do not test this. You learned from Midas to let some ideas be stories. A satyr tries a nibble. His face makes 3 shapes in a row. He decides figs are safer. Correct. The ring moves again. The ground tilts up. Stones bark at your toes. Your sandals hold. Bless those knots. The leader hands the drum to a fresh arm and gives you a water skin. You pass it along. You set the pace by breath, not by brag. You remember the symposiarch and his steady ladle. Here, too, one hand shapes the night. The god is that hand. He uses it gently. On the ridge, the trees break. The moon spills over your feet like silk. The city far below glows faintly, a brown ember under a lid. The ring stops. It opens like a door. The god steps to the edge and lifts the thyrsus. He does not speak. He does not need to. You feel the hills answer like a choir of sleeping lions shifting in their grass. A soft debate whispers near your elbow. Were the rites wild like rumor says? A satyr murmurs? Or mostly songs and steps in safe joy? His friend shrugs. Historians still argue whether the tales of tearing are metaphors, or big talk, or rare storms told too loud. The leader hears and nods. We keep the peace, she says. We keep the heat. We do both. She turns to you. She touches your shoulder with a cool palm. You danced well, she says. You also watched. That matters. You breathe in. You breathe out. You feel steady. You feel light. The ring fades into more minor knots. Folks rest on cloaks. A satyr finally wins a staring contest with the kid goat. He claims a prize no one offered. The goat ignores him. You laugh softly. 3 jokes are your limit. You reached it hours ago. You break your own rule and whisper, "One more then." The moth flits across your face like a tiny high five. You accept. The leader hums a closing tune. The god answers with a low purr in his throat. The thyrsus leans against an oak. The pine cone looks asleep. You lie back on the ground. The ivy crown shifts on your hair. It cools your temples like a kind hand. Ariadne's crown peeks between branches. It winks slow and sure. You think of the bowl in the room, the rope behind the stage, and the dolphin shell in your belt. You think of bread torn and shared. You think of milk at your lips from a stone that smiled. Your eyes grow heavy. You turn onto your side. The ground holds you like a friend. The last thing you hear is the soft, happy squeak of someone's sandals that did not blow a knot. You tell your sandals, "Well done." They preen. You sleep. Morning finds you smelling pine and cool stone. Your cheek has a leaf print. Cute. You sit up. The ring from the night has faded into soft paths and quiet cloaks. The god stands at the edge of the clearing. He looks east. He taps the thyrsus once. The pinecone pricks up like a cat's ear. A rumble comes from the trees. It is not thunder. It purrs. It pads. 2 leopards slip into the light. Their spots swim like shadows in honey. A low chariot rolls behind them, axles whispering. The cats yawn, long and toothy, like sofas with opinions. You tell your feet to be brave. They pretend. The god steps up, calm as tea. He offers a hand. You climb in. Your shell hums in your belt like a little drum with manners. The cats lean into the harness. The chariot glides. Wind combs your hair into a new map. You do not check a mirror. You do not own a mirror. You hold the rail and smile like a person who trusts cats with brakes. The path clears through oaks, and rocky hills slide by. Fields widen. You pass a farm with rows of stakes and bare vines tied neat as braids. A woman waves a pruning knife. She holds it like a pen. She is writing in the spring in the woods. The god slows. He steps down and kneels by a low wall. He takes a vine cutting, plain as a brown stick. He drives it into the ground with a stake. He pats the soil. He ties a gentle knot. He shows a boy how to twist the tie so the vine can grow and still breathe. The boy nods fast. He will teach 3 friends by sunset. You feel that promise hop from hand to hand like a warm loaf. You roll on. A market shimmers. Spices make the air tilt. Cinnamon, pepper, clove. You sneeze so hard a leopard startles. The cat sneezes back. You both look embarrassed and pretend you did not. Drums talk in the square. Hands clap. Feet answer in soft dust. The god smiles at the beat and lets the chariot fall into step. Beyond the market, land rises to dark folds. The cats find an extended, sure trot. You pass rocks tall as houses. A plain opens sun-wide. A river threads it in green. Folks guide oxen by plows. Vines run high in some fields, braided up trees. Marry the vine to the tree, a farmer says with pride. Give it a strong friend. You nod. The god spreads his hand. He shows another way. 2 short stakes, neat rows, and the wind is easy to judge. Both paths live. Both make cups. He points to a hill burning yellow with flowers. Bees pour like soft rain. A kid chases them and laughs. You think of Nyssa and the baby in the cave with honey on his lip. The chariot hums. The leopards move as one. Their tails draw question marks that have already been answered. You cross a border of low stones and time. A guide on a donkey meets you. The donkey brays a greeting you understand. Snacks? Always snacks. You give it a figure. It loves you for 5 seconds. Fair deal. The guide points to a high ridge. He says a name that sounds like a drum. He says, over and over, there is a city with a story about ivy. You think of our god and grin. This will be good. Days fold. Nights are lamps and warm bread and simple mats. Villages turn to towns, then to big walls. Tradesmen fix wheels, sharpen knives, trade jokes, eye the cats, and smile anyway. The god shows growers how to press gently, how to catch seeds before they bite back, and how to cool jars in shade. He waters the bowl in each place. He repeats the same rule with the same slight nod. 3 parts water, 1 part wine. The night stays kind. A stone road leads to a river, wide and brown. You smell reeds and wet clay. Boats lean into the current like sleepy cows. A drummer sits on the stern and sets a slow beat for the oars. You match your breath to it without trying. The god teaches a baker to bake grape must into a cake to keep for lean days. The baker claps flour off his hands and hugs him. You blink it away like dust. News rides the river too. In one port, a trader tells a tale. Far to the east, he says, there is a city called Nyssa near a tall mountain. Ivy grows there, despite the land being hot. The people say the god once passed that way and left green behind like a kind stain. A fact brushes the story. Long ago, a king named Alexander marched that road. Old books say he found a place called Nyssa and a mountain named Miros, Thigh, as if the land itself kept the twice-born memory. Historians still argue whether Nyssa was real, a smart city's trick, or a dream shaped to please a conqueror. You do not mind the fog. You like that the tale remembers ivy. The chariot turns toward that wind. The cats change their stride for sand. The sky widens till it tastes like metal. Drums become hand claps. Songs use fewer notes and hold them longer, like birds that glide more than flap. A boy shows you a dried fig, dark as a moonless well. You bite. It is sun and time, made chewy. You hand him a grape. He pops it and grins purple. On a ridge, a temple stands naked to the wind. No roof. For columns. A flat stone. People tie rags to a tree and leave them there, wishes flapping. The god lays his palm on the rock. He pours 1 drop. He pours water after. He speaks no words. The drop sinks. A low hush moves the rags. A woman thanks him with her whole face and hands. You think the world is big. You think the world is close. At dusk, a leopard chuffs and sits. The god laughs and scratches a spotted ear. You learn a new law of cats. Never touch the eyebrow. Noted. You sleep with the wheel as your pillow. The moth tucks into the pine cone like a tiny blanket thief. Your shell hums a river note you have not heard before. It is a lullaby from a place ahead. Another day, another valley. A stand of poplars draws a green line through dust. Children wave wreaths of leaves you do not know. They lift them to the cats, then to you. You bow from the waist because that feels right. They giggle and point at your hair. You fix nothing. Your look is now traveling cloud. You climb a last ridge. The world opens. Snow sits on a far line of teeth. The air tastes like stone. Below, a city clings to a hill with ease. Vines spill down its slopes like dark water. Up on a shoulder of rock, ivy runs wild. It climbs where no bucket can reach. A path threads to it like a sentence you can read. The god laughs like he recognizes his handwriting on a wall, long and far from home. People meet you at the gate. They speak a tongue that flickers like light on a stream. Joy needs no translation. They bring garlands and drums. A woman presses your hands and pulls you into a circle. She points to the ivy. She says a name that sounds like Nissa, or close to it. She points to the peak. She says a name that sounds like thigh. Your chest warms. Your face cools in the wind. You breathe both at once in a way that feels like a key turning in a lock. They show you their vines. Some run along low walls. Some climb rough poles. Some spill from stone boxes on roofs. The god kneels and guides hands. He shows a clean cut for winter. He sets a shallow bowl by the roots. He tips one ladle of water there, not more. He says your plant is not a camel. It needs breath as much as it needs to drink. The farmer laughs and nods. He has seen roots drown and roots starve. He did not have the words. Now he does. He also sets the rules for nights. Mix your bowl. Share the ladle. Keep the pace. He lifts a cup. He pours a drop for the ground. He says thanks to the ridge that holds the ivy like a gentle hand. A girl claps because she likes the sound of the drop of dust. You clap too. It is a small, perfect click. A quirky rumor floats by with the smoke from a cooking fire. An older man swears that a tiger once paced beside the god's cart and licked the wheel. He says the cat learned manners and stopped stealing bread. You do not check this. You focus on your bread. A leopard noses your sleeve and puffs a warm hello. You puff back. You are courageous now. You share a little wine with cooks and drummers. You water it well. You pass figs and flatbread. Someone crushes herbs and a pinch of pepper into a bowl, then dips bread in it. The taste pops. You raise an eyebrow. The boy who gave you a dried fig raises his, too, like, good, right? You nod. You poke your tongue like a lizard to cool it. He laughs. Night falls like a shawl. Stars shake loose from black. Ariadne's crown hangs where you can still find it. Even here. That steadies you. Drums slow. Feet calm. You lie back on a roof warm from the day. The god sits by the ivy and hums. Far off, you hear a trumpet you do not know. It calls and fades. The cats curl into baskets that do not exist. One snores like a tiny saw. You smile. You drift. A last soft truth murmurs in your ear as you slide toward sleep. In the deep past, people made wine long before the Greeks told stories about it. In hills north and east of here, in lands now called Georgia and Armenia, folks pressed grapes 6,000 to 8,000 years back. Archaeologists discovered an ancient winery in a cave in Armenia, featuring a press, jars, and seeds. This is real. The god hears facts like that and only grins. He is not jealous. He loves that people and vines found each other early and kept the song. A final breeze shakes the ivy. Leaves clap in polite joy. Your shell hums along with the roof beams. The leopards twitch in dreams, maybe chasing dust motes, maybe racing the moon. You tuck the tiny masked chip near the shell. Land and sea, stage and road, vine and drum. The chariot rocks you to a stop you do not feel. You sleep under a sky that learned a new word and kept it. You wake on the roof to the warm smells of stone and bread. The town below hums. Hammers ring. Wheels squeak. Your shell hums too, like it wants breakfast. The god points down a lane. You follow a yard full of clay and sunlight. A potter waves you in. His hands shine red with slip. He flips a jar on its side. The base is pointy. He grins and taps it. Ships, his nod says. He sets the jar in a sand ring. It stands like a spear stuck in the earth. Fact for your pocket. Many amphorae have pointed bottoms. They fit racks on ships. They stab into sand or stands. They travel well. That shape is a passport. He lines up shapes for you. Amphora, tall with 2 handles. Crater, wide and proud. The heart of a knight. Kylix, flat and thin, with ear handles and a pretty face in the bowl. Cantharos, deep and tall, with high handles like goat horns. The god taps that one and smiles. It is his favorite cup in old art. Oinakoi, the wine jug with a spout like a beak. You try to say Oinakoi. You sneeze. The potter laughs with his whole chest. He shows you stamps on jar necks. A city mark, a maker's mark, a number. You touch a seal and feel a tiny groove. So many jars rode boats and carts. So many crossed seas. Some now sleep in deep water. Divers find them in piles, like a cliff of old thirsts. Your mind fills with quiet ships and moon paths. A boy brings a ladle, a chathos. He tips water into a crater, then wine. 3-1. He does it the way you brew tea when you think of a friend. Careful, warm, unrushed. The god nods. He holds the thyrsus like a staff in a slow parade. Ivy curls around your wrist and lets go, like a cat saying hi but on its terms. The potter brings resin in a lump. Pine, sharp and sweet. He warms it in his palm. He smears a jar rim. He seals a lid. He hands you a shard to sniff. You smell forest and salt wind. He pours a taste. This is retsina. He mouths. The resin came first to seal jars. It also kissed the wine. Some folks still love that pine note today. You sip. It tastes like a pine tree hugged a lemon. Your tongue says, huh, then says, okay. You sip again. Sold. A fisherman sticks his head in. He clamps a shell under his arm like a purse. He grins at the god and sets a small cup down. The drink is pale and shy. He says some islanders mix a splash of seawater into wine. He calls it old school. He calls it brave. You try a finger's worth. It tastes like a wave licked a grape. You keep your face calm. You decide you like it in theory. The fisher laughs. He prefers theory too. The potter rolls in a sictor. It looks like a fat vase with a long neck. He sets it in the crater. Water goes in one side, wine in the other. Everything cools. Historians still argue whether the sictor held the wine inside, floating in cold water, or the water inside, floating in wine. The potter shrugs. He uses whatever is cold. He winks. He points at the roof where snow hides in winter. He saves ice in pits. He knows tricks. You lean over the wheel. He throws a cup in a breath. Clay climbs like a small hill that wants to be kind. He trims a foot ring as thin as a coin. He paints eyes on a kylix. When you drink, your eyes stare out. You become the mask again. You give a tiny growl for fun. A little boy drops his fig in shock. You toss it back to him. He bows with such drama that the moth nearby gives a slow clap. The god sets the thyrsus on a bench. He shows you its parts like a friend showing a bike. Fennel stalk, tall and light. Ivy, green and cool. Pine cone, brown and wise. You spin it in your palm. It pulls your hand true. It is a sign more than a weapon. Though a satyr nearby taps the cone and shows the hidden iron tip. Just once. You file that under, do not test me. You hand it back with 2 hands. A woman enters with a basket of herbs. She pinches clay into a cup. Myrtle too. The scent rises like a green bell. She pours the mix through a strainer with stars cut in it. You sip. It tastes like a hillside in spring. A neighbor adds honey and calls it oinomaly. Sweet. Soft. Nap adjacent. You look at the god. He smirks at nap adjacent. He never misses your nonsense. Another jar arrives with a painted dolphin. You lift it like a greeting to your shell. The wine inside is dark and rich. The potter says it came across water from a proud island. Chios? Thasos? He shrugs. The jar's lips know. Old writers bragged about wines from those places. They talked about Pramnian wine too. Historians still argue whether Pramnian was a place, a style, or a recipe with herbs. You sip and do not solve it. You let the question be a cloud. He pulls out a deep bowl with a small spout. A phial. It fits your palm like a smooth stone. You pour a drop on the floor. A libation. Hello? Ground. Thank you. Ground. The drop darkens dust. The smell cools the room. A rule stays in the center, even here in a busy yard. Mix. Share. Pace. Keep the boat of the night steady. Quirky tidbit for your pocket. People once wore amethyst to dodge drunken fog. The stone name means not drunk. Some cups were colored purple. A wish and a joke. You glance at your ivy crown. You are already wearing a green plan for a clear head. You are a belt and suspenders person now. Safety first. Sandal not second. A donkey pokes its nose over the wall. It brays like a critic with a newsletter. You offer a grape. It chooses your sleeve instead. It tastes like clay. It rethinks its life. You and the donkey both stare into the middle distance for 5 seconds. Growth. The potter flips a small cup upside down. A painted scene hides inside. A A tiny ship sails across the bottom. When you drink, the boat floats on the surface. You grin. Old artists loved cup tricks. They hid jokes in bowls. They turned sips into shows. Your moth approves. It sits on the rim and puffs tiny wings like a fan. The god has you pour with the oinakoi now. Wrist steady. Elbow low. Philosopher mode. You fill 4 cups around, then tip the ladle back to the crater. A ring of friends lands on couches under the shade. No one guzzles. No one lectures. A man shares a cabbage leaf and claims it cures headaches. You nod and pocket that for tomorrow. You may test it. Maybe. A neighbor brings salted cheese and herbs. Another brings olives with lemon peel. The small plates teach the big bowl to be kind. You put your cup down between sips. You breathe. You listen. Your voice stays warm. Your feet do not wander off without you. The potter shows a rack of cup shapes. Schiphos, deep and plain, for a long talk. Mastos, shaped like a breast, is used in games that would get your elbow wet. Raita hang like animal heads. You hug the ram again. You nail the finger-on spout trick this time. One drip. Much pride. The room gives you a polite cheer. The way you clap for a kid on a bike with training wheels. You take it. He sets an old amphora upright and taps the clay. It rings dull. He nods. He says old jars breathe a little. New ones are fewer. He says a cool pit and a steady wall can keep wine gentle. He points to a jar with a seal pressed from a ring. He reads the letters. He says the city name. He smiles at the sea. He knows that boat by taste. The god lifts the crater. He checks the temp with a finger. He nods, then tips water again. Measure is mercy, someone says in the shade. Good. You throw a leaf at the katabo's dish. It pings. Leaves count. It is a rule now. The room approves of this science. A small debate pops up by the door. A boy asks, did people always mix it with water, or did some drink it strong? The potter shrugs. Barbarians bragged about straight wine. He says with a smile, we mix. We last. He points at the door. The day is long. The work is real. Mixing keeps hands honest and heads clear. You look at your cup and feel grateful for the rule you keep meeting. It keeps finding you, too. You pack a little kit. A strainer with star holes. A small ladle. A tiny jug. The potter throws in a spare cup. He says, for the road. You say you will not collect gear like a magpie. Then you collect gear like a magpie. You shrug. Growth. Part 2. The god raps the thyrsus on the gatepost. The pinecone shivers. The yard is still, light and sharp as a bell. He pours a drop on the threshold. He smiles. He thanks the hands that made the bowls, that made the nights, that made the words we keep saying. You feel goosebumps on your arm. You pretend it is the breeze. It is not the breeze. Outside, the street yawns into noon. Cats stretch in doorways. A child drums on a pot. The donkey brays one more edit note and wanders off to send it. You slip the amethyst rumor into your pocket with the mask chip and shell. Land. Sea. Stage. Tools. You have a little museum at your hip. It hums like a calm hive. You take one last sip of Retsina. The pine pops, the lemon winks. You pour the rest back into the bowl and add water. You pass it on. A rule travels with you. Mix. Share. Pace. Help the one behind you. You step back onto the leaf path. It shines green through the dust. The moth floats like a slow petal. The god swings the thyrsus so the ivy whispers. The day opens like a clean page. Your hand knows what to draw. The leaf path dips into shade. Pines hush the sky. The god walks close, thyrsus easy at his side. Ivy trails from it and brushes your wrist, cool as river glass. Your shell hums a small note in your belt, then settles. You feel a breeze that is colder than it needs to be. You do not have to ask whose mood rides on it. Hera keeps an elegant spreadsheet of grudges. You try to look boring. You fail at being boring. The air smells like time and distant rain. You remember the baby in the cave, and Ino's hands, and the sprint to the sea. Some say Ino did not drown. She slipped into the waves and rose again as Leucothea, the White Lady. Sailors later prayed to her for help when storms chewed their boats. A poet named Homer even has her save a man who fights the sea alone, with a magic veil and a kind word. That is a true old story. You touch the dolphin shell at your belt and nod at the water you cannot see. Hera does not like these rescues. She sends trouble like sharp wind through a keyhole. A story rustles from the pines. A king in Thrace once chased the nurses of the god with a whip and a shout. He swung at vines as if joy were a weed. The land went dry. The wine stopped. Even the streams held their breath. He learned to stop swinging. He learned to ask. The earth answered when he calmed his hands. You take that note and set it next to mix your bowl and tie your sandals tighter. The nymphs do more than sing and pour. They hide. They guide. They become stars when needed. Some say the Hyades nursed the minor god and then rose to the face of the bull as a little rain-bringing cluster. You do not chase the star chart now. You just like that can light a sky. The path bends to a low wall covered in ivy. The plant hugs the rock like a friend who knows when to squeeze. Ivy stays green when vines sleep. People here trust it to cool hotheads. They twisted it into wreaths at parties and set it in their hair. Fact for your pocket. Archaeologists have found gold wreaths cut into ivy leaves in Greek graves. The metal copies the plant. The plant copied the mood. You picture someone laying a soft crown on a sleeping brow, then closing a lid with steady hands. The god stops at a hollow of grass. He looks east with a face that is both young and old. A satyr steps out, hair tousled by a wind that does not blow. He is almost a man and nearly a kid. His smile is wide. His steps are all bouncy. He tosses grapes in the air and misses half. He laughs at himself. His name is Ampelos. The word also means vine. That is your hint and your soft warning. Ampelos runs up a slope and finds a bull dozing in the shade. The beast is as big as a boat flipped upside down. Ampelos strokes a horn. He tosses a fig at you. For luck. A donkey brays from somewhere like your own conscience with hooves. Ampelos hears it and winks, which is not the same as listening. He swings onto the bull's back. He sits side saddle like a prince in a joke and throws both arms wide. The god calls, a low sound, kind and careful. Ampelos answers with a whoop. The bull wakes wrong. It lurches. It turns. Ampelos reels as if the land tipped. He reaches. He misses. He falls. No shout. No smash. Just a startled breath that never finishes. The wind stops to listen. Ivy curls closer to the rock. The god kneels without a sound. He gathers the still form with slow hands. He does not ask why. He does not argue with air. He sets Ampelos down on warm grass and presses his palm to the earth. The Thyrsus leans, watching. A tear touches the soil. The ground wakes. A green thread rises from where Ampelos lies. Then another. They twine. They climb the Thyrsus as if it were a promise. Leaves unfurl. Tiny blooms blush. Grapes swell from those small stars and darken to blue. Breath returns to the circle, but in a new shape. You hold the new vine in your fingers. It is soft and firm at once. The god shows you how to twist it on a stake. He ties the knot he taught that boy by the low wall, loose enough so the plant can grow and still breathe. He will not lose this friend. Not again. A bowl appears. Water meets wine. The mix goes slowly. The first drop to the ground is for the one who changed and stayed. Historians still argue whether the tale of Ampelos comes late, from a long poem written in a later age, or if it reaches back to older songs now gone. They also argue whether the bull is a river in disguise or just a wild day with bad timing. You do not need a final answer. You take the lesson in your hands, green and cool. The moth that has followed you all this way lands on the new leaf. It rests there like a tiny blessing that learned to sit still. A satyr places a wreath of ivy on the god's hair. Another set is on your own. It is heavier than before. It fits better. Your temples are cool. Your breath evens. Grief and gift stand together like two jars on one shelf. A woman sets a small basket at your feet. She lifts the lid. A little house snake blinks from the coils, tongue tasting air in tiny slips. Some old shrines kept such snakes as lucky friends. They ate mice. They curled in warm jars. People whispered that they showed them at night dances as a sign that the house and field were safe. Quirky? Yes. Sweet? Also yes. The snake blinks again and tucks back in. You nod at its excellent job performance. Another breath of cold air slips through the trees. Hera still watches. Zeus once tried to hide the boy by turning him into a kid goat. Another time into a shower of grapes. Another time in a troop of girls, ribbons and all. Hera found him anyway. She sent a fog into his head. He wandered. He hurt. A mother of gods, Rhea, met him in the east with drums like we heard on the hill. She taught him steps that stitched his thoughts back together. The tympanon warmed his hands. The ivy cooled his brow. You think of a friend putting a blanket on your shoulders and a new song in your mouth. That is how the world can heal a little. You pour a small libation, the phial balanced in your palm. One drop for the ground, one for the vines, one for the boy who became a plant that holds the sun. The smell rises and fades. The bowl turns in your hands without spilling. You pass it to a satyr who has learned not to slosh today. Growth. We love to see it. A soft debate drifts by like smoke. Was Hera angry because love strayed? A nymph murmurs. Or because balance broke? Another shrugs. Historians still argue whether these tales excuse storms in a family or warn kings to stay gentle. The god says nothing. He presses the vine to the stake again and makes the knot neat. Sometimes love is a tidy knot on a rough day. Your shell hums once at your belt. The dolphin on its curve seems to smile. You think of water and wine and the old rule that keeps nights kind. You think of how the god keeps showing you the same lesson with new leaves. Mix, share, pace. Help the one behind you. Hold the grief with one hand and the gift with the other. Do both. The ivy shows one more trick before you go. A boy wraps it around a jar and sets the jar in a draft. The wine inside cools a touch. People once believed ivy cooled the head and anything it hugged. It may be possible. It may feel like it does. Feelings can be enough. The boy sips a watered cup and yawns. Not bored. Better. He passes the ladle to his aunt. She smiles and adds more water without being told. You pack a cutting of the new vine, with a promise to plant it where it can climb. You tuck it near your strainer with star holes and the tiny mask chip. Your pocket museum hums like a hive with good manners. The donkey brays from somewhere with perfect timing, like an editor who knows when to land a note. Fine. Yes. We will not ride bulls today. We will not ride on any day. The god lifts the thyrsus. The pine cone gleams. The ivy hugs it in a green spiral like time itself. You look back at the low wall, the sleeping basket, and the cool patch of grass. Loss sits there. Love sits there too. You wave at both. You thank both. You follow the leaves as they point toward a road that looks older than the hill and patient as a slow river. You follow the old road like a thread in dust. Stones line the way, waist high, square, and calm. A bearded head tops one, worn smooth by hands, a herm. People once set these along roads and at gates. Hermes watched the paths. Travelers touched the stone, asked for luck, and kept going. You touch this one. The nose is chipped. The blessing still feels warm. The land rises. Thebes sits on its hill, quiet now. The Cadmea lifts like a shoulder. A trickle of water runs down a ditch and smells like wet iron. You think of Semele's window and the lightning that was too much. You think of Cithaeron and soft drums and pine. You do not stay long. The god nods at the city and lifts his chin toward the lower hills. The leaf path bends south. You go. Fields spread like blankets stitched with stone walls. A small town dozes in a fold of land. Vines run low here, tidy and sure. A man waves from a terrace. His hair is silver at the edges. His eyes smile first. He wipes his hands on his tunic and bows to the god like he knows an old friend when he sees one. He is Icarios. He offers shade, bread, and a cup. You sit under a figure. The air tastes like dust and honey. Icarios is proud of his rose. He points at knots, at stakes, at shallow bowls dug at roots. He does not brag loudly. He beams quietly. The god walks the line and listens. He points at one vine that wants more breath. He lifts a leaf to catch light. Icarios nods and tucks that move into his hands. A few shepherds push through the hedge. They carry crooks and have a lunch bag vibe. One has a flute. One has a dog with one ear up and one ear down. The dog decides you look edible. He licks your palm and forgives you for not being food. The men laugh at nothing in a way that says they worked hard and earned it. Icarios waves them over. He wants to share the new gift. A clay jar sits cool in a pit. He lifts it with a grunt. He draws a thin stream into a crater. You see the color and breathe the sharp sweet. He lifts the ladle. He hesitates. He looks at the god. The god touches the water jug with 2 fingers. Icarios nods. He tips water first, then wine, and stirs the swirl. 3-1. He learned fast. He pours shallow cups and watches eyes. The shepherds sip, blink, and laugh. Their faces bloom. They pass cups and bite bread. The flute finds a small song that sounds like a hill taking a nap. The dog lies on your feet as if you had a plan for that. You do not. You accept the plan. More men show up. Word travels faster than carts. Cups go round. The crater sings its soft storm. One man takes a deep pull, then another. He is a gulper, not a sipper. He makes a face like he ate a pine cone. He does it again. His friend smacks his arm. Ease up, that smack says. He does not ease. When dusk falls, the gulper staggers. He shouts about poison. He waves his stick. He forgets his ankles. He trips and blames the ground for moving. He throws 3 words at the air and tries to form a 4th. He fails. 2 others copy him because copying is an easy art. The dog barks at their bad ideas. The dog is right. They do not listen to the dog. It turns fast and wrong. The men push. Icarios steps in, hands up. He is gentle. He is not weak. It does not matter. A blow lands where it should not. He folds. The dog screams. The sound makes the fig leaves shake. The men freeze. They look at their hands as if they belong to strangers. Then they run into the night, scared of the shadows they made. The god kneels. He bows his head. He presses his palm to the ground. He does not call thunder. He does not set lions on anyone. He lifts Icarios with care and lays him under the figure. He calls for water. He calls for a cloth. He calls for silence. The dog lies on Icarios' chest and will not move. You feel your chest hurt like a bruise from the inside. A girl runs from the house. Her dress is simple. Her hair is plaited. She sees the scene and stops in a way that makes time stick. She is Erigone. She sinks to her knees and takes her father's face in both hands. She does not scream. She mouths a prayer to the god and the earth. She kisses the dog's head to tell it she sees it. The dog does not stop shaking. At dawn, the god taps the ground with the thyrsus. Ivy lifts its head along the wall. He plants a cutting near the fig and ties it with the knot you now know by heart. He shows Erigone the knot. She ties one herself. She bites the string. She nods once. She thanks him with a voice that sounds like a reed shaken once by the wind. The men creep back, gray with shame. They did not sleep. They know. They dig a small grave by the field and lay Icarios there. They bring stones and stack them neatly. They poured a cup of water onto the ground. A dog whines and presses its nose to the earth. Then the dog lifts its head and runs, tail straight as a spear, toward the city beyond the hills. Erigone follows. She does not look back. The god does, once. He leaves the vine to climb the stake in steady loops. He leaves the fig to make shade. He leaves the knot tied loose so life can grow. He follows the girl. The road into Athens is crowded with many people. Herms mark the turns. The dog leads. It runs to a house, then another. It finds the men who ran. It barks and barks until neighbors spill into the lane. The truth comes out the way wine comes from a jar. Slow at first, then too much. Folks grieve. Folks rage. Folks look down. The dog lies in the dust and shakes again. A pressing sadness falls over the city in the weeks to come. Maidens in the demes hang garlands in trees. Then some hang ropes too. A plague of grief, the old stories say. The god does not want this. He moves through dreams like a kind wind and speaks to elders. He says, "Stop this. Honor the dead with life. Sing, swing, share." He asks them to make a rite that holds pain without letting it bite. So they start a custom called Iora, the swinging. They hang ropes from boughs. They set boards for seats. Girls and boys take turns. They sway and sing little songs for Erigone. They eat small cakes and tie dolls in branches so the wind can play with them. Old writers say the little figures hung there took on the blame and soothed the air. Quirky? Yes, but kind. Joy came back in slow steps. The city breathed again. A season later, spring opens the jars. Real fact for your map. In Athens, people kept a 3-day festival called the Anthesteria. Day 1 was Pythoigia, opening the jars. They tasted the new wine, fresh and bright. Day 2 was chose, the jugs. Each person got a jug and drank in a sort of quiet race. Day 3 was kaitroi, the pots. They cooked grains for the dead and sent them love. Doors were smeared with pitch. Folks said, "Begone, spirits." At the end, it was a mix of joy and memory. It still feels smart. On some days in the countryside, they also kept the rural Dionysia. They carried wreaths and sang down lanes with jokes and masks. They set up short plays on carts and laughed fast and clean. The gods' festivals slide between city and field like water in a braid. Back in the yard by the fig, Erigone plants more cuttings. The vines climb and bear. When she drinks, she mixes water first. She remembers. She tells men who visit how to sip. She points at the crater and the ladle. She teaches the knot to a boy with big ears and good hands. He learns in one try and thinks he invented it. She smiles and lets him keep that story. At night, you lie on the grass and watch the sky settle. Stars show slowly. A dog barks far off and then stops as if someone scratched the good spot. 3 lights on the black map catch your eye. To the north, a bent herdsman seems to walk. Boötes, some say. Old tellers say that it is a Carios, set up there to keep a place at the edge of the path. Near the band of the Milky Way, a pure figure lifts a sheaf. Virgo. Some say that it is Erigone, quiet and bright. Off to the side, a little spark runs ahead. The little dog. Some say that it is Mara, still leading, still showing the way with a bark made of light. You point. The god nods. He does not say who is who. He looks pleased that the story found a roof. Historians still argue whether the Iora grew from this one tale or if swings were older fun folded into a curse. They also say whether Icaria in Attica truly birthed the first actor's cart or if later writers gave it that honor to flatter local pride. You let the fog be fog. The stars stay sharp anyway. At a low shrine near the field, you see a tiny cup and a small mask hung on a twig. The wind moves them. The cup knocks the mask with a light cluck that sounds like a friend leaving a party the right way. You pour a drop on the dirt. You pour another on the grave. You pour a third by the figure. You say nothing. The ground answers with cool. Erigone brings bread, olives, and a bowl of grapes. She waters the wine well. She hands the first sip to the god. He hands the second to her. You take the third and think of all the hands that will hold this rule after you leave. Mix, share, pace, help the one behind you. Hold joy and sorrow together and let both breathe. The dog with one ear up and one ear down pads over and drops a stick on your foot. You do not play fetch with sticks tied to memories. You scratch his chest. He forgives you for the lack of fetch and naps on your toes. You are abed now. This is your job. You accept it. When the moon rises, the crown of Ariadne peeks over the figure. It winks in a slow half-ring. Somewhere far off, a donkey brays one last note, then beds down. Your moth makes a small loop and lands on the crater's rim, steadfast as always. Your shell hums at your belt. It sounds like low waves on a long beach. The leaf path lifts its green light at the edge of the yard. You stand. You bow to the fig and the grave and the dog. You follow the leaves as they curve toward the next line of road, old and patient, ready for your steps. The leaf path slips to a dock. The air smells like fish, rope, and figs. You step on a ship. Your shell hums at your belt with a tiny wave note. The god taps the thyrsus. The sail fills. Water opens. The moon rides along like a shy friend. You watch stars swing. Ariadne's crown keeps its curve. It follows you west. Morning. A river the color of tea. Banks of reed. Bread smells ride the wind. Tiber. The ship noses past warehouses. Jars stack like red bees. The city rises slowly. A pile of tan and brick and shouts. Rome. The leaf path hides in the dust of the quay. You feel it anyway. Names shift here. People greet the god as Bacchus. Others say Liber Pater. A pair call him Dionysus and wink like they know both outfits. The god smiles. He lets each tongue use its favorite coat. He walks toward a hill with a soft shoulder. Aventine. A small shrine smells of pine and old bread. A trio stands in mind and memory. Liber, Libera, and Ceres. Grain, growth, wine. You touch the door. It is warm. The date is spring. The The street fills with older women who carry tiny ovens on boards. Little flames lick clean in the air. They fry honey cakes and sell them for a coin. Boys stand tall and awkward in new shoes. They lift off their kid cloaks and step into white togas, plain and bright. They lift their heads a little higher. Mothers wipe their eyes. Fathers pretend not to. This is the Liberalia. It lives on the 17th of March by Roman count. That is a real festival. The cakes are sweet and stick to your teeth in a way that says, do not talk with your mouth full. You fail. People smile and let you. In a side street, a small group moves at dusk. Ivy rings their brows. They carry little lamps, not torches. They sing softly. They whisper Evo, a call you know from the hills. The steps are slow. The mood is deep. The cup is small and watery. The night is kind until it is not. Word spreads fast in a city that loves talk. A rumor grows teeth. People say the gatherings are wild. They say oaths are sworn to strange ends. They say coin jars roll in the dark. They say the names of people you should not name. You hear the tale in 3 versions by noon. You keep your face calm and your cup neat. You have met knights. You know they can carry both joy and fear. The Senate listens. Then it acts. In 186 BCE, men passed a hard rule. They carve it in bronze. A messenger takes it south. The plate will sleep for 2,000 years in a hill near Tiriolo. People will find it later, green with age, and read it out loud. The rule is the Senatus Consultum de Bacchanalibus. That is a mouthful. The facts are plain. No one may hold a backsheik right without the Senate's leave. No common fund. No oaths. No priest or priestess set up without approval. No meetings at night. No more than 5 people at once. If you need more, ask. Ask in Rome. Ask a lot. You may get a no. You stand in a small crowd while an officer reads a copy. His voice is as flat as a lid on a pot. A woman beside you squeezes a wreath till her knuckles go white. A man in a tradesman's cloak nods. A boy frowns. The god listens like a teacher who knows a test is not the same as a whole life. Historians still debate whether the rites were as wild as Livy claims, or if the story evolved into a larger, more exaggerated tale. They also argue whether Bacchus came new and hot from Greece or if Rome had Liber first and then braided the two into one vine. You do not pick a side today. You watch how the pulse shifts and keeps beating. Rites do not die. They learn new steps. Groups ask for leave. Some get it. They meet in daylight. They keep numbers low. They placed a bowl in the center and watered it thoroughly. They sing more softly. They pray in Latin and Greek. They pour a drop for the ground. They teach the knot for vines and knights. The heart stays, the clothes change. Even big Rome still loves a good cup. Facts for your kit. Romans mixed wine with water, similar to the Greeks. They cool bowls in wells. They drop snow in buckets in summer. They warm wine in winter and call it conditum, spiced and sweet. They stir honey into a jug and call it mulsum. They boil grape must down to a thick syrup, defrutum or sapa, and fold it into sauces. Soldiers march on pasca, a mixture of sour wine and water, ensuring cleanliness and safety. You try a sip. It is not fancy. It is beneficial. The donkey would approve. The donkey is not here. The donkey would still approve. A tavern near the river sells a rose wine. Not color. Scent. The keeper dips petals in a jar and whispers a spell that is mostly patience. The drink smells like gardens and afternoons. Quirky and cute. Your moth insists on sniffing. It likes it. It becomes a perfume snob in 1 second. Warehouses stack amphorae under shade. Stamps on necks tell tales. Some jars say roads. Some say cas. Some say a Latin name and a year. Workers tip used jars and smash them neatly on a mound. Shards pile by the river like red snow. Oil jars stack higher over time, forming a hill that will earn a name. You brush clay dust off your sleeve and read a stamp with your thumb. It hums with sea light you do not see. Masks hang in a stall by the forum. Comedy. Tragedy. A satyr grin with wild eyes. A vendor sells a little bronze Bacchus with a bunch of grapes and a tiny panther at his heel. He winks and says, "Put him by your door." The god behind you smirks. He whispers, "We are everywhere." You try not to laugh. You fail. That is joke 1. Keep count. A young poet recites lines in a portico. He swears he can bend Greek stories into Latin and still keep the beat. He flubs a meter and blames his sandals. That is joke too. You clap anyway. The god taps the thyrsus on the stones. The sound is soft and real. Across the sea, in towns that sleep under a mountain, painters fill rooms with vines and masks. One shows Bacchus with a leopard and grapes climbing a dark cone. Vesuvius stands there with a cloak of green that is not its usual coat. Later, ash will fall. Today, color lives. That is a Roman wall, a good fact, and a whisper that the god likes to lean on stone and teach it to smile. You sit by the Tiber at dusk. A boy wanders by with a jug. He says it is Falernian, a name that makes older men brag. He pours a fingertip. It is strong even with water. Your eyebrows do a push-up. You add more water. Measure is mercy. You hear from your memory. You smile. You pour a drop into the bank. The river takes it and keeps moving. A small group meets under a fig by the Aventine. They pass a vial and let one drop fall. They speak a line in Latin, then one in Greek. They sing low. A lictor, an officer with rods, pauses at the gate, listens, then walks on. The group keeps numbers. They keep the day. They keep the peace. The heart of the rite is not a secret. It is a rule you have carried since the press. Mix, share, pace, help, hold joy with care. You ask a baker why he sells cakes for Liber. He shrugs and says, "Boys need a sweet start." He hands you one more and mutters, "On the house." You try to pay. He slaps your hand with a laugh. That is joke 3. You eat the cake. You pretend it was 1 bite. It was 2. The moth approves your math. A matron shows you a wreath of ivy and flowers. She says she hangs it on her door for health. She claims that the green color cools the room. She offers a sprig. You tuck it under your strap. Your head does feel clear. It could be the sprig. It could be the breeze. Feelings can be enough. You let it. A small debate hums near the steps. Was the crackdown about crime, a man asks, or about fear of groups no one could count? His friend shrugs. Historians still argue whether the Senate wanted safety, or control, or both. The god listens and spins the pine cone once. He has seen this dance in many cities. The steps change. The beat does not. A priest on the Aventine blesses a vine planted in a courtyard pot. He ties the knot, you know. He waters a circle into dust. He pours the first drop to the root. He calls the god by every name he knows. Bacchus, Liber, Dionysus, and Father of Joy. A child echoes joy and claps. That works. Night leans over roofs. Lamps wink like far cousins of stars. You lift your cup and see your face in the surface. Eyes, ivy, dust. Your tiny mask chip hangs warm at your hip. Your strainer with star holes sits in your bag. Your shell hums a low Roman line, complete and slow. Across the river, you hear a double pipe. You hear a drum like a soft chest. The sound could be Greek. It could be Latin. It is both. You walk the quay. You pass a stall that sells violet garlands and a cart that sells warm nuts with honey. You buy none. You eat too. You count badly. You smile well. The donkey is still not here to judge. You judge yourself gently. You are learning. The leaf path finds you between paving stones. Green glows in little flashes, then goes still. The god touches your shoulder with the thyrsus, light as breath. Rome hums. The river carries moon pieces on its back. A chorus of late people laughs in a lane. You breathe in pine, clay, bread, and a faint rose. The heart of the vine beats in new clothes. It beats steadily. You follow it toward one more night under a sky that wears the same crown in any tongue. The leaf path climbs a last low hill. Vines spread like green nets over stone. Torches burn small and steadily along a wall. Their light is soft, like butter on warm bread. The sea sighs somewhere below. Your shell hums at your belt, a tiny tide in your pocket. The god steps beside you. He taps the thyrsus once. The pinecone nods like an old friend who knows your steps now. A circle waits in the yard. A crater sits in the center, calm as a moon in a bowl. Kylike's line up, thin and shy. Your strainer with star holes rests near the ladle. It feels good to put your tools down where they belong. Silenus leans on a post, beard combed. eyes bright. A few satyrs sway at a safe distance. The moth lands on the rim of the crater like a tiny stage manager. Even the donkey appears in the gate and brays one long note, as if to say, keep it tidy. You pour water first, then wine 3-1. The swirl resembles a slow-moving cloud. The smell is sharp and friendly. You pass the first cup to the god. He pours a drop on the ground. You follow. You pour for Semele, who faced light. You pour for Ino, who learned the sea. You pour for the helmsman who steered bravely. You pour for Midas, who asked, learned, and chose bread. You pour for Ariadne, who woke and chose love. You pour for Erigone and for the dog who led the way. The soil drinks. The night cools. Friends drift in. The potter nods and brings a fresh kylix with eyes that blink when you sip. A woman from the hill ties ivy on your hair with gentle fingers. The boy with the good knot tests your steak again and grins when it holds. The leopards sleep by the wall like two rugs that purr. The helmsman stands far back, hat in hand, and looks relieved to be on land. You take a slow walk to the low lane by the big rock. Tripods once lined the street. A round monument with carved leaves still stands there today. The Karagic monument of Lysicrates. That is a real thing in Athens. Raised in the 4th century BCE to brag with style about a win. You run your hand along the cold curve. Stone keeps stories like jars keep wine. You like that. Back in the yard, someone passes a rhyton shaped like a donkey's head. You drink from the back, covering the nose hole with a finger to prevent spills. You do it, one drip. The donkey gives you a side eye and brays, okay, fine. The room laughs. That is joke one. You are pacing yourself. A neighbor holds up a cup with a tiny word on it. Kalos. Beautiful, he says, fond and soft. People scratched names on cups long ago to praise friends. Quirky and sweet. He winks at his wife. She rolls her eyes and smiles anyway. You sip and pretend you did not see. You saw. It was cute. Masks hang from a peg by the door. Your tiny red chip still sits in your pouch. You touch it next to the shell. Land and sea hum together. You listen. You hear the rope of a machine in your memory and the katabo's ping that made the fig fall. You flick a leaf at a small plate. It rings. The moth approves. Your aim has improved. That is joke 2, but also true. A guest brings out a cup of retsina. The pine pops like a small forest in your mouth. A fisherman with kind eyes offers a sip with a hint of seawater. You try one drop and salute his courage. The satyr with the nervous ears chews half a leaf of ivy and makes a face that is 3 faces in one. He waves off his plan and picks a figure. Growth. We love to see it. The god steps to the crater and adds water again. He keeps the pace slow. He looks at you like a teacher who knows the test is life. You set the ladle down and sit on a low wall. Your sandals sigh. They made it through a lot. Your toes forgive you for grape skins and dust. You forgive them for their opinions. That is joke 3. You are done now. Facts float in like swallows at dusk. You think of the theater on the south slope, where judges dropped ballots in jars and poets wore ivy. You think of Rome's bronze plate that tried to box joy and how joy learned new steps and still sang. You remember the cave at Nyssa and the baby who slept on leaves that whispered. You remember how bread, figs, and mixed wine made peace in rooms and fields. You feel full without being heavy. That is the right kind of full. A debate drifts over the yard like a light breeze. Where did he start? Someone asks. Thrace? Asia? Here at home. Another shrugs. Historians still argue whether the gods' worship grew in from the north, or sailed in from the east, or rose right from Greek soil. The god smiles without answering. He lifts a grape and lets it catch the torchlight. The answer might be yes to all. You like it? Yes. A satyr starts a tiny drum with fingers only. The thump is soft as a cat's purr. A dancer traces 2 steps like the crane on Delos. A nod to thread and away home. You join. Your feet remember heel-toe from the press. You do not crush seeds. You do not rush the turn. You keep the ring. The god watches. Pleased. You walk the rows once more. Leaves stroke your wrists. Grapes glow like small moons. The knot you learned holds steady. You touch one stake and feel a pulse that is not quite sound. It is the feeling of many hands repeating a move until it becomes a rule. Mix. Share. Pace. Help. You smile. You put that in your pocket with the masked chip, the shell, and the strainer with stars. You stop by a small shrine set with a phial and a sprig of myrtle. You pour one last drop. The moth sits on the rim and lowers its wings like a curtain. You whisper thanks. You do not list. The ground answers with an incredible smell and a little hush. The god raises his cup. He pours a drop for the absent and then one for the living. He lifts the rim to you. You touch your cup to his. The click is small and perfect. 2 kind nights, you say. To steady mornings, he adds. You drink. The mix is clean and bright. You feel a warm line down your throat and into your chest. It settles like a quiet promise. You look up. The crown of Ariadne glows near the north. It looks like a slight smile cut in black. It has followed you from island to city to road. It will follow you into sleep. You let your shoulders drop. The torches burn low. The leopards snore. The donkey has found hay and mercy. The helmsman slips away with a nod. Silenus winks and pretends not to yawn. The god sets the thyrsus by the door. The pine cone looks pleased. You fold your wreath under your head like a small pillow of green. You set your cup on its side. You tuck the star strainer and mask chip safe. You keep the shell in your hand because it hums in a way that sounds like waves whispering. You close your eyes. Above, the sky holds all your friends. A ship with painted eyes. A fig tree with shade to share. A theater with a rope you did not touch. A market with cinnamon that made a cat sneeze. A river with gold sand you left alone. A cave with bees that brought honey. A god who taught you to mix a bowl and a life and to pour a drop first for the ground. The leaves whisper, sleep. The air agrees. You drift. Let your breath slow, and let the last lights in that little vineyard fade to embers. The torches settling into soft orange buds as the stone warms your back. The vines make a quiet roof above your eyes, because there is nothing else you need to hold up right now and no line you need to finish. Only the small, kind weight of your shell in your palm and the easy hush of a cup set safely on its side. Let your shoulders loosen and feel the cool ivy press gently against your temples. The way steady hands set a wreath on your hair. And let the steady rule that kept every night kind move from your ears to your chest. This calm rhythm pours a touch of water first, then a little joy, then a longer sip of peace, and then a long, soft breath that floats away like a moth lifting from the rim of a lamp. The stars can take care of the crown now, so let your eyes close and picture that small smile of light finding its place, and let the rest of the sky blur into a velvet lane where each step is quiet and sure. And even the donkey who always has one last note decides to save it for tomorrow and curls into comfortable straw. If any thought knocks at the door, let it hear the low drum you learned in the hills. The slow beat that says we can move together without hurrying, that we can rest without missing anything. And let that sound stretch into a long line of ease that reaches from your toes to your fingers and then up and over your head like a warm blanket. You are safe, and the path is gentle, and the cup is set down, and the pinecone has closed its many little doors for the night. The ship waits at anchor beyond the dark vines, and the sea is breathing in a way that matches your breath now, in and out, slow and good, until even the last torch becomes a single star and you float, quiet and light, into sleep.